Before we begin today's podcast, we have a quick word from our sponsor. The NFL is back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving all new players a can't-miss offer for Week 1. Bet just $1 on any NFL game during the first week of the season and receive $200 in free bets instantly, no matter what. Take advantage of this limited time offer now. You heard me right. DraftKings is giving all new users $200 in free bets instantly when you place a bet of $1 or more on any Week 1 game. Head to DraftKings Sportsbook app now and check out all of the great promotion and daily odds boost. Plus, you can make every game a big game with Same Game Parlay. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code THPN to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any Week 1 game. That's promo code THPN to get your free $200 in free bets instantly for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. You must be 21 years or older in New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Grump, man, oh man, maybe I've just got to get something that populates as like on the background of the screen, so we don't get to see you over here doing some random hand movements.
No. Listen to me. First of all, the fact that you bring more energy to that ad than you do to any of our podcasts distresses me.
Hey, I got to give a little bit of effort every once in a while, grumpy old man. But welcome to the Islanders Never Say Die podcast. I'm your host, TJ, and with me again, as always, is our NHL analyst and expert, the grumpy old man. They say there is no shame in his game because he is always the same.
That's me.
And with us today, special guest, Phil's Facts. We see a little face reveal as well today. How are you, Phil?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me on here. Look forward to talking Isles with you guys.
All right. Stop your talking. First of all, what's the main thing you're supposed to do at the top of this podcast?
Oh, I'm glad actually reminded me because I would have forgotten. I'll be honest, I would have forgotten. Hey, remember, if you like this content and you want to see more, the best way to make sure you don't miss out on any of the action is by subscribing to us on YouTube, liking on Facebook, and following on Twitter. Again, we go live pretty much every single Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and every Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got some XNH. You got a little, what's going on, Greg?
Yeah, because you keep on saying 8 o'clock. Today was actually your best time in a while, and it's 10 after 8. You're never on time.
Well, we've got a few guests upcoming.
Wait, before we get to the guests, what about our other podcast, TJ?
You got to give me a sec. You're rushing it. You can't.
Because I got to ask Phil a question. Go ahead. Pump the next podcast, which is Thursdays and Sundays, 9 o'clock, supposedly.
9 o'clock on Thursdays. 8 o'clock on Sundays, Eastern Standard Time on both those. TJ and the Grumpy Old Man, general sports podcast, just kind of riffing, banter, and a lot of hot takes.
Now, Phil, have you subscribed to the TJ and the Grumpy Old Man podcast?
I follow you guys on Twitter. So whereas
I don't care what you do. Get on YouTube, get on Facebook, whatever you got to do, Phil. We need people to build up our numbers. I'm looking at your background screen. It's not like you're doing anything else.
I will follow you guys on YouTube. How about that?
That's what I want to hear.
I will follow you guys on YouTube in addition to following you guys on Twitter.
Look at that, Crumple. Look
you
at
can follow us everywhere.
Oh, look at that.
I don't have Facebook, so I can't promise that.
No, neither do I.
Yeah,
you're still subscribed to it.
I don't know what to do. I just go with what TJ says. I just want to make sure he gets the word out because usually he doesn't.
That is true, and I'm glad you got me in check, Grumpy Old Man, to keep me in line. I don't know where we'd be without you on this podcast, Grump. We'd be in a world of hurt. Oh, goodness gracious. It's been a pretty slow off season, and I think
that's not true.
It's by
all the other teams have done a lot of stuff. It just hasn't been busy for us.
I think it's by design. I don't think we're going to be sitting on our hands too much longer, and maybe I'm just one of these unbelievably optimistic supporters of the team and of the organization. I will tell you, as we do get closer to training camp, remember, training camp, ladies and gentlemen, starts, I believe, September 22nd. As we get closer to training camp, the more and more I will be worried that we will not go after a more grandiose plan. We will not go after a big fish. I'd be remiss if I didn't admit that. I'm seeing a lot of rumors saying that the Blues want Scott Mayfield in some capacity, perhaps as well in a trade. I want Phil to Phil dukes it out a lot on social media, on Twitter. He definitely gets in a lot of battles on there. I want Phil to get his take in first, Grumpy.
The Scott Mayfield rumor came from an Athletic article that was flawed from the get-go. Jeremy Rutherford, who is the Blues writer, started by saying that Scott Mayfield, who plays third pairing minutes for the Isles, might be expendable in a deal that would bring Tarasenko back to the island. Obvious flaw number one, Scott Mayfield is not a second pairing defenseman, and you would think someone whose articles are behind a paywall at the Athletic would know something like that. The second thing that was contradictory there was he also cited the fact that Mayfield plays near 20 minutes a night, which aren't third pair minutes. Completely abandons the fact that Mayfield on $1.45 million for another 2 years is a contract that the Islanders really can't afford to lose, especially not next year where Ryan Pulock is going to be owed a new contract. Noah Dobson, right now you might not think he's going to be worth all that much money, probably a bridge deal, but depending on the kind of year he has, he's going to need to get paid something too. So they need to have that cap flexibility there. And unless Seattle's going to comp us in the form of sending back another defenseman, which I don't know who that would even be, or retain a significant portion of Tarasenko's salary, for me, it's a non-starter.
Yeah, I agree with Phil. It's not happening. But, that's what happens. It's the dog days of August, and you just kind of throw anything up against the wall. Tarasenko still needs to be moved. What teams can even afford to bring him under with his cap number? That's a non-starter. Just like I said, let's see. Islanders have been linked. Let's see, what could we give the Blue? What do the Blues want? Oh, they want a defenseman. Yeah, let's put in Scott Mayfield. They don't think about anything else. I mean, yeah, I read that article, and actually, I do get the Athletic. I do get that. It's coming out of my pocket every whatever. I think I do it a yearly thing, and I go on my student discount, so I get a 50% off.
What classes are you taking, Grumpy?
The only ones that matter. Life skills. I'm teaching.
So you're the teacher. Okay. I did think that. Yeah, I read the article and I thought I'm like, there's no way a guy like that who's got so much cap flexibility for us would be involved in a deal going the other direction. And it brings up another interesting point I wanted to follow up with. Now, Phil, you have a little bit of a theory online that Art Staple reads and perhaps takes some of your ideas and tries to implement those in articles. And again, you've got some pretty compelling points, albeit online. By the way, you can find all of Phil's information to his Twitter page. It's also linked in the description below if I didn't mention that earlier.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's specifically only my stuff. It's just ever since Garth Snow has left, there's been a decline in Staples' content. And the reason for that is pretty obvious. He was buddy-buddy with Snow. Snow would give him information, the Boychuk trade, the Leddy trade, all this information Staple had ahead of time. And trying to get anything out of Lou is kind of like pulling teeth. So it appears that Staple has gone and crowdsourced a lot of his rumor information from the likes of Islanders Twitter. I had discussed this with you, TJ, right after the expansion draft, that if another Islander player was going to be moved out in a deal to bring in Tarasenko, the logical player would be Josh Bailey. Why? Well, we just exposed him, right? So what does that tell you about what Lou thinks about Josh Bailey in terms of him being a critical piece of the Islanders' future, right? So looking at a template of what Philly did with Columbus, where they swapped Voracek and Atkinson, this is a deal that put a couple pieces together and it might make sense. Everyone laughs at me and says, oh, that's the most ridiculous idea I ever hear, until Staple decides about 2 weeks later to put it in an article. So
now all of a sudden, hey, Art Staples saying, hey, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. Hell, he used to try to pawn us off on the thinking that Leo Komarov fit right in on the first line and brought some stability to it. I've seen some great work from him as of late.
Arthur Staple has used some of the ridiculous things I've said before. I just find it funny. And the same thing with the Islanders Inquirer. They use the exact same verbiage that I use. And you know how I can tell? Because it's smartly written. And that's how I know it came from me.
they usually say something of the nature of, "Can you believe some fans think this?" Insert
Yes.
grumpy old man quote here.
Yes. And they'll say exactly what I say. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm proven correct. What did I say the Islanders were going to do in the offseason before we got into it? Do you remember what I predicted?
I think you said
Absolutely freaking nothing. That's what we were going to do. And what have we done?
You did say that the first thing they need to do is unload about $15 million in salary, which is what they did, and they did that very effectively to start.
That's true.
So mining some cap space isn't nothing.
But I meant acquiring players. Were they going to acquire players? I'm like, no. And I knew they weren't. What have we done? Right? In essence, if you think about all the rumors that have come true, we've replaced Everly with the F- Kyle Palmieri, and we've lost a second pairing defenseman. That is, in fact, that's all we've done. Nothing else. Just bring out the same cast of characters and the ever-aging Zach Parise to play on the third line. That's all we've done. Nothing else. Nothing.
I'm sure Phil's going to want to get a comment on that one.
Yeah, I mean, nothing else as of yet. We still don't know who's replacing Nick Leddy. Here's what we do know. What seems to be pretty clear is 5 of our 6 defensemen from last year are going to be back. We know that they're going to be back because they're under contract. Andy Green is likely going to start off with Noah Dobson on that third pair. The question is who's going to fill that second spot. One possible theory, maybe they're waiting to camp to see what Robin Salo has. I don't think it would be Bolduc. Bolduc has only had 24 pro games in a very truncated Bridgeport season, but Salo's been playing with men for several years now in Europe, and he's going to be 23 years old, which is the age where Trotz really started to heavily utilize Ryan Pulock and Adam Pelech. So if Salo shows them something in camp that would indicate to them that this is someone that could stick, maybe they roll with it. If he doesn't, they could always make a trade before the season starts, which is something Gar Snow did very effectively back in 2014. Lou is not Snow, and they operate differently. But again, that's a consideration. I think in the Lou era, top to bottom, this forward group is probably going to be the best opening night forward group that they're going to be rolling out in the 4 years. And I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that, Grumpy, because I don't even think it's close.
I think it's the same. It hasn't changed in 3 years. You're talking maybe a couple of ancillary pieces down the bottom. Big deal. That for me, if we're going to roll out the same lineup, in essence, with Zach Parise, like where he's going to have a career resurgence at 37, it doesn't happen. He's not Tom Brady. Okay. He's Zach freaking washed. Thank you. I had to get in there. Washed up Zach Parise. No. A healthy scratch for Minnesota. All of a sudden, we're expecting him to have a resurgence. I don't see it. I mean, Wahlstrom has to play, right? Has to play. But where is he going to play? You're going to put him back on the third line? I don't know. I mean, is Kyle Palmieri going to be able to carry the ball on the first line now? I don't know. But to me, I think it's just more of the same. Shampoo Lou, wash, rinse, repeat. And you got a nice head of hair, so you know what I'm talking about, Phil.
What would you expect Zach Parise's baseline production to be on that third line? Right, last year he dipped.
10 goals, 15 assists.
How many goals did we get from the left wing 3 position last year?
I don't know, Phil. That's why you are on this show, is to hit us with those facts.
One
goal.
Now, see, Grumpy, you say 10 goals, 15 assists. I said this back now. A few podcasts ago, I said I think he'd be around 15. I mean, max maybe 20 goals. Remember, Jean-Gabriel Pageau and Oliver Wahlstrom are going to open up a lot for him. Even if he doesn't have much left in the tank, he's playing with, I'm telling you, could be a really good third line. Maybe the best third line in hockey, Grump.
I don't know why I even listen to you. I don't even know why I do this podcast when you start talking like that.
It might not be the best third line in hockey, but this is going to be the most effective and versatile third line that they're going to throw out in an opening night by far. Why did Parise's numbers dip, right? There were 2 factors. Number one, him and his new coach, did not get along very well. His new coach wanted to integrate some of the younger players. It all started with Parise not getting off the ice and trying to feed a player for a hat trick late in the game with an net situation, and it cost them the game. And Parise was scratched a little bit. But who did they call back in the playoffs when they were down 2-1? And who was a very effective player in the last 4 games that made it a series with Vegas? Zach Parise. Number 2, 25 goals is what he had in the previous 2 seasons on the power play. They stripped him of all his power play time. So the Islanders are certainly going to use him on the power play. He's been a very effective power play goal scorer in his entire career. He sits exactly where Anders Lee sits, bottom of the, inside of the net, and bangs home the trash. He's very effective at it. So I would expect, just on the basis of him being on the power play and playing with more competent line mates in Pageau and Wahlstrom, I don't think 15 to 20 goals is out of reach. And that's a position where over the past several seasons, we've been getting nothing. I mean, if you look back to the first year that Lou was here, we rolled out Val Filppula, Leo Komarov, and Tanner Fritz on opening night. So to go all the way from
a hell of a year.
I'm sorry?
I said Filppula did have a hell of a year. You talk about a resurgence. He seemed to have a resurgence that year.
And some veterans seem to be able to do that with the Islanders. I thought that Brassard, he wasn't great with us, but he had a bit of a bounce back after a dud year. He put up 32 points, and then he went to the desert, didn't do all that great, and now he's on a near league-man deal as of this morning with Philadelphia. So I don't think it's out of the question that Parise playing with line mates like Pageau and Wahlstrom, who are going to get traffic to the net into an area where Parise is comfortable banging home goals and using him effectively on the power play, which the Islanders are certainly going to do just because of personnel, right? Who else is it going to be? We had Travis Zajac playing on the power play in the playoffs, for God's sake. He's going to score more.
Yeah, but does he play enough defense? Because as we know, the whole system is predicated on playing defense. I don't care if you put pucks in the net. If you don't play defense, well, if you're a younger guy and you don't play defense, you never get to play. But if you're an older guy who doesn't play defense, you'll get 5 or 6 chances, but you still have to be able to play defense.
I don't disagree. You talk about the power play. I don't think that the linchpin of our team's success on the power play will be Zach Parise. I think it's a more overarching need than just him. I think if you talk about forward grouping, I think what we could line up there, even if we don't make a move for Tarasenko, what we throw out there opening night, this could possibly be the best forward grouping we've had, but it's not by a long shot. And you see articles out there, and I can't remember, I think it was written by the Islanders Inquirer. They were saying, hey, can Kyle Palmieri fill the shoes and fill the slot of Jordan Eberle? And this is just a classic bait and switch, in my opinion, because even when Jordan Eberle was here, I still thought we needed a first line or a top 6 winger who can really go ahead and fill the sniper role. And can Kyle Palmieri fill the role of Jordan Eberle? I believe that's yes. I still believe we've always had that overarching need though to get that top tier sniper. And if you're going to play Oliver Wahlstrom as a third line right wing, which is what all signs would point to, or third line right left wing, I think it just still doesn't answer the question that we've had for now 3 years.
How many goals do you need to get out of your top line right wing, in your opinion? What would be a good? I know Eberle was always around that 18 to 23, 18 to 25 range. What do you think you need from that position?
With Matt Barzal, I'd want a guy with 30 goals, bare minimum. I mean, think about what Anders Lee has produced. And again, we've always talked about it. Anders Lee is a poor man, as Grump would say, broke-ass man's Dave Anderchuk. I mean, he's a guy who's able to go ahead and pot in goals. The space that Barzal creates, if we had a true sniper on that wing, I think, if he didn't score 30 goals, it'd be borderline criminal if you had a true sniper on that line.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 30 as well. I mean, Anders Lee was on his way to having a really good season last year. As much grief as I give him, the human totem pole, average Anders, standing right there in front of the net. He does what he does. He's good at what he does. I mean, I don't know if he would have hit 30, but he certainly would have hit 25. I firmly believe that in the shortened season. And this year he could hit 30. I think it's really dependent on whoever plays the right wing also, and that they gel with Matt Barzal. One thing you can say about Jordan Eberle, they did have good chemistry. Didn't always, result in goals per se from Eberle, but they played well together and covered up the deficiencies of Anders Lee, who is really not a fit for a player of Matt Barzal. So for me, I don't know if Palmieri is. I think he might be capable of doing that, but then it's just a wash. I guess I look at it going to the next season. I look at it this way. I think it's safe to assume that the Islanders under Barry Trotz get the most out of their players. I think everyone will agree on that. And I think it's not like, I don't think we're a team that underachieves by any stretch of the imagination. And I could say, actually, in the playoffs in particular, you could say that we overachieve based on the talent on our roster. And my concern is, as the guys get older and older, you're going to see less and less of that. And that's my concern. And I just don't see the willingness to incorporate younger talent on a wholesale measure into the lineup. And that's just frustrating to me. Of course, when you got guys like Casper Holmstrom in the minors, those are guys who are not going to make it anyway. But why not give Kiefer Bellows a shot? I don't know why we felt the urgency or the need to re-sign a Travis Zajac or a Zach Parise when you have a Kiefer Bellows who's shown in a limited amount of playing time that he can put the puck in the net. Here's the thing. He plays just as much defense as Zach Parise does. Just as much.
I'll let you get a response there, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, I'll comment first on the Palmieri thing. So reason to be, I'll give you a reason to be optimistic and a reason to be pessimistic. The reason to be pessimistic first is because it seemed last season that Palmieri had a bit of a falling off until the postseason, right? With the Devils, he wasn't playing all that great. And with the Islanders, for those 16, 17 games until the playoffs started, utilized on that third line, he really wasn't very effective. Reasons to be optimistic. Near career low shooting percentage last year after 5 consecutive seasons of pacing 30 goals or more, right? The year before was the COVID, the truncated COVID year. He had 25 goals in 65 games, which is good for a 30-ish goal pace, if I'm not mistaken. So you're talking about a right winger who is among the leaders of right wingers in goals over the past half decade. And we saw that when paired together with Barzal in utility type situations, they did play well effectively. I think in like 30 seconds of ice time, they had 3 goals together. So I do think that that's a good line that I want to see and have a good look at. But you have options now in terms of bumping people and up and down the lineup, right? If Wahlstrom grows into what we think he's going to grow into, maybe that's someone who can be elevated later in the season if he's outperforming Palmieri. On the left side, right, we never had a replacement left winger in the event that someone went down to injury. Parise is not as good as he used to be. But again, he's only 19 months removed from a season where he had 25 goals. You'd rather have that as the guy that you're going to in the event of injury, as opposed to Leo Komarov moving into the top 6 for when Beauvillier goes down and when Lee goes down. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but those are the 2 left wingers we lost last year and had no replacement for.
So I got a few points. I'll let you take it, Grum.
Well, for me, I'd rather have Kiefer Bellows, not somebody who's 37 years old and who's not going to be getting any better. He's just going to be getting worse. He doesn't play any defense. He hasn't played any defense in a long time. To expect his defense to improve, I just find it laughable where Kiefer Bellows, well, you know what? He didn't play defense this game. And you've signed a guy like Kyle Palmieri who hasn't even seen the defensive side of the ice in probably 2 or 3 years.
Parise.
Whatever his name is. I don't care what his name is. The hack, the hack from New Jersey, right? And the same thing with Palmieri. You know what? Even crappy teams have guys who used to put the puck in net. Mariusz Tchaikovsky, when he played for the Islanders, boy, putting up 50, 60 points a year. But you know what? He was a bad player on a really bad team. And that's why I look at Kyle Palmieri, the F-. Bad trade, bad player, bad team. Now he's going to infect us. Great job, Lou. Great job.
The issue I have, though.
And let's double down. Let's double down. How many years? How many years is he going to give him? 5? 5 years for a guy who's 30? Did we just do that contract with Jordan Eberle? Did we just do that contract? I'm just whatever.
I'll be interested.
You think Wahlstrom is going to play his way up the lineup? No freaking way. They're going to ride those veterans till their legs fall right out of their sockets.
That's what I wanted to say. Wahlstrom is a guy where, hell, it's just not the MO of Barry Trotz. I mean, he does Noah Dobson still having played 90 some odd games towards the tail end of last year, even towards around playoff time. Oh, he has a bad time period. Oh, we're going to sit him for 10 minutes. Oh, Oliver Wahlstrom does this. Oh, he's going to be sitting and riding the pine for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter what he produces. He could go out there and he could put up 50 points that year. He'll find time periods throughout the games where he'll be sitting, for 5, 10 plus minutes because I didn't like the way you went ahead and skated back to the bench. I don't like the way you went ahead and marked your man, even though it didn't happen and nothing resulted of it. I didn't like the way you did that, even though there could be a plethora of players doing similar items of that nature. I don't think Wahlstrom, I think he's destined this year for third line. I would love to see him maybe having a chance to elevate it, but I just don't foresee it. And then the Parise contract. This is something too. I don't want this to get too much off because I want you to have a chance to respond, though, Phil. But what do you think the Parise contract looks like? Because when I hear, and this is something I've been pondering a little bit, when I hear that he was offered a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal, or a 3-year deal, it makes me think if he signed a 1-year contract, he's getting paid. He's getting paid more than maybe $2 million a year. If he signed, a 2-year deal, I have to assume it's still more than league vet minimum. And 3-year deal, I still would have to assume that's more than league vet minimum. I'm just not sure what he's going to get paid if you offer him a 1, 2, and a 3-year deal.
I would assume league min with maybe performance bonuses, although I would hope not. If you look at the players of that ilk who have recently signed, I think we saw, who is it that signed in Tampa? Corey Perry, I think, went for league min, if I'm not mistaken.
$1 million per year.
1 million per. 1 million per. Yeah, the people who I'm thinking of who are of that ilk are, it was Jumbo who I was thinking of. Jumbo just signed with Florida, $750, no performance bonuses. Jason Spezza is on his 3rd round of league min with Toronto, which is now $750. Last year was $700, no performance bonuses. The common denominator between those 3 players is they are all at about 110 million in career earnings. So I would hope that just like those players with their respective teams are signing at league min without performance bonuses, I would hope that Parise would give us the same luxury from
Keep dreaming, Phil. Keep dreaming.
I'd be all down for it.
38-year-old Andy Green signed for league minimum, 1.3 million in roster and performance bonuses. Who knows what they'll give Palmieri? I mean, what they're going to give Parise. I get them mixed up because they both suck, honestly, at this stage of their career.
Right, but if Andy Green had 110 million in career earnings, I'm not sure he would have been as adamant about the signing bonuses.
He had no other options. He had no options. What options do 38, 39-year-old defensemen have? Zdeno Chara, Hall of Famer, 44 years old. He's still out there. What did he sign for last year for Washington? $795,000, no bonuses. Though there is no market for those guys. I just think we overvalue veterans.
Chara got bonuses last year.
I don't think he did.
He did. They were lower, but Chara did get bonuses.
Don't make me check on you.
Check on me. TJ can check that in real time. Chara got bonuses last year.
I'm going to say that Phil sounds pretty confident, Grump. And
Phil's confident in everything he says. It doesn't mean he's right.
I'd say
because no one checks him on his facts. He talks very confidently for a guy who has 4 children, 4 girls no less, at his age. Astounding, his poor wife. And think about it. I mean, so he has that sort of aura, like he's the king of the castle, I guess, is what he thinks in his house. But he's on the TJ and the Grumpy Old Man show now, so it doesn't fly.
I don't know, Grump. You're gonna have to give me some time. I'll have to pull that. I'm sure. Yeah, he did get Grumpy, you're wrong. He got performance bonuses about 700,000. So
okay,
his total wound up being 1.5 million.
And Andy Green was how much?
Andy Green got paid more than
okay. Andy Green.
Yeah. So he technically did get performance bonuses, but I would argue I'm not sure who's got more left in the tank. That's one of those ones you don't even want to touch. Who's got more left?
Chara has nothing left in the tank. Chara has nothing left in the tank, and Andy Green is on fumes. So not much for him either.
Oh man.
Now I predict. You mentioned Robin Salo earlier. Do you think that Lou would trust him or Barry would trust him playing second line minutes? I don't see that happening. I think he'd roll with Andy Green as his second line, as his second pairing defenseman.
Yeah, I just can't see him putting Green and Mayfield together, though.
No, it won't be. It'll be him and Dobson.
So it would be him and Dobson, and not necessarily having a second pair and a third pair, but I guess they would be probably in that situation. You'd be riding Pollock and Pelech a little harder than you'd like to early on in the season, while a guy like Salo gets up to speed. Green is going to play more minutes on the penalty kill side. Salo is a power play type, a quick skater, person who can move the puck around and pick up points, and he's going to have more minutes on the power play. And then, their even strength minutes would probably wash out, would be my guess, if that were going to be the route that they were going to go. I don't think it's going to be Sebastian Aho. I think they've had a good look at him for the last 5 years, and I don't think Lou or Barry rather cares for what he's seen over there. And I don't think it's going to be Thomas Hickey either, right? If they thought much of Thomas Hickey, I don't see why they would have brought in Braden Coburn last year at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I agree with Phil. Being one of TJ's little buddies, they're usually against the grumpy old man all the time. I mean, I know it's still not a fair battle, honestly, but I hate to agree with them, but I do on that. The whole thing, I think, when it comes to Andy Green, I just think that they trust him, and they don't trust any of the young players. Noah Dobson, they're going to be forced to give him more minutes. They're not, and they're not going to break up the pairing of Dobson and Green. I firmly believe that. Like I said, for me, I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, if we're just bringing back the same cast of characters, I don't even know how anyone would expect us to improve. I mean, that's my whole thing. Zach Parise is not going to put us over the top. That much I can tell you. He's not going to do that.
Well, I think that's going to stem us into another question, but I have one quick comment. Now, the issue I've had, and this is where I'm a stickler, is when we mismanage
a stickler or a stickler.
Stickler, whatever you want to call it, Grump.
Not a stickler.
A stickler, Grump. I've always had an issue when we mismanage assets, and if let's say Barry's always had this thought process about Sebastian Aho, it's not going to be the answer. We don't want to use Sebastian Aho. The guy, what is he, 3 or 4-time AHL All-Star? You have to figure there was always some sort of market for him in some capacity. Even if a team's like, hey, I'm going to take a flyer on a guy like that. What's the point to keep a guy of that nature where he's played in the last 2 years? What has he played? Like a handful of games. You count him on 1 or 2 hands. Was it like 5?
I think three games. It was last year he played 3 games. The year before he played, I want to say none because he wasn't on the team. He was in Bridgeport.
Yeah,
I've never understood like when they have that thought process, and even if somebody got injured, Aho was not the next guy up, I don't think. For
me, it's like you want to know why they don't like him? He looks like he can actually produce some offense from the back end. We don't want that. We don't want that. Where I think he'd be seriously, as a third line pairing, I'd love to see him with Scott Mayfield. How does Scott Mayfield look his best? When he has somebody who can move the puck out of the zone. Okay, that's when he looks his best. Then he can just play his game. Everyone knows I love Scott Mayfield, but there's certain things he does well. When he has to get outside of his skill set, and that's with any player. Do what you do best, and the coach should know, okay, if you're a defensive stalwart back there, I don't want you carrying the puck up the ice if it's a liability. It's too much on your plate. Where I think Sebastian Aho, like Devon Taves, thanks, Lou, that would have been a fantastic maybe potential to use him. And maybe even Salo, too. The same thing, pairing him with Scott Mayfield. I have no problem with that. I just don't think they trust any of the young guys. They've lost my trust in their trust to play young players.
Right. Mayfield, it's funny because Mayfield, oddly enough, was actually at his best when Leddy was at his worst, which was in the playoffs, right? Last year, Leddy started off on fire, putting up points and moving the puck well. Second half of the season, he kind of petered off a bit. And in the playoffs, he was pretty miserable. It was a pretty downward spiral. And Mayfield was just a man possessed. I mean, he was scoring goals. He was making big defensive plays. He was, the penalty kill was not really much to speak of in the playoffs, but he was, a stalwart on the penalty kill all year long. To TJ's point earlier about the way Trotz utilizes young players, I don't think it's a blanket general rule. I think it's really case by case. I honestly think it is, right? People are frustrated with the fact that Bellows isn't getting the opportunity, but he got the first crack at it last year. He got to play the first 7 games with Pajot and Johnston, who really wasn't a fit on that line. But what did he produce? He produced nothing. And then they put in Wahlstrom. And the fact that Wahlstrom was able to stick around for 45, 46 games versus Bellows 14 games should tell you that there's something about Wahlstrom's game that Barry sees a lot more in than Bellows. I'm not a huge Bellows fan, but I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all thing. We saw Beauvillier in Barry's first year as a 21-year-old bounce back and forth between the second and third line, and he's known to be a streaky player. When he wanted to get Beauvillier right, he sent him to what he called his fix-it Felix line, or whatever he dubbed it back then, which was Filppula and Komarov. So he's utilized young players in situations where he feels comfortable utilizing them. In the case of Pelican Polak, He used them as 23-year-olds to supplant Letty and Boychuk to become his top pair at some point during their first season. And I think if Wahlstrom is showing him that he is significantly outplaying Palmieri during the regular season, I don't see why that's a switch that he wouldn't consider making.
Ooh.
When Kiefer Bellows started off, he did have a rocky start, but I'm not gonna, I don't think it could be or overstated enough that when he did go ahead and get his second chance and effort, where they're saying, "Hey, you've had your chance, you didn't perform. We're going to let you sit and mull over it. We're going to let you play here. You're on the taxi squad," items of that nature. He comes back, he gets 3 games, scores 3 goals on the first line over a 3-game time span. He had 2 goals the first game, 1 goal the second game, third game, no goals. And then all of a sudden he sits, never to be seen from again. And, then we're rotating, the Zach Parises are rotating, the Leo Komarovs out there, and Kiefer's nowhere to be seen. I've always believed in some aspects with some players, doesn't matter what the performance is, the chances you're going to get are going to be limited. And whether that's what he sees at practice, whether that's, a strategy-based item, I just have always thought that with him. But, you would think that, hey, 3 games, 3 goals on a top line would warrant you a chance and opportunity maybe for a little bit more time, even if not on the first line, maybe on the second, third line, fourth line. I don't care. You figure it would warrant something. Didn't warrant anything for him. That, as a player, I'd be pissed. I'm not hearing what he's hearing in practice. I'm not hearing what he's hearing, in film. But, I'd be a little, from the outside looking in, I'd be a little ticked.
Well, like I said, once again, young guy makes one mistake on the defensive end, out, never to be seen again. Let me tell you something. If it was medieval times, he would have been put up on the rack, right? Or he might have been beheaded. Or he might have been disemboweled. But here's the thing. You got Travis Zajac, Leo Komarov. They can make 1,000 mistakes. I remember early in the year, right? Hey, there's Leo Komarov taking a bad penalty at the beginning. Then he comes on the ice, and he lets his guy skate for the game-winning goal against Washington, where he set him up with the bad mate and the bad major penalty to start. And what does our pal Barry say in the press conference? Well, you know what? He's got a little bit more rope than the other guys. Why? He can't play. He can't skate. He can't shoot. He's borderline defensively. He's a good penalty killer. That's right, Barry. We need 15 guys on this team who can play the penalty kill. Nobody who can play on the offense. 1 goal the whole freaking year from that guy. Played on the first line, 1 goal. You talk about the third line having 1 goal. How many goals did you get from the first line? We got 3 from Kiefer Bellows and 1 from Leo Komarov.
Before I let Phil respond, Grumpy, was that an exact quote that Barry Trotz said? Because it sounded like it. Can you repeat that one more time? He said, he gets a little more rope, because that was an exact quote from Barry Trotz, right?
That's exactly what he said.
There was something about trust. He's a player I trust. I think it was
trust. All I know is get your head out of your butt, Barry. That's all I have to say.
I think that's the verbiage you use, but I'll let Phil respond.
Listen, Leo aside, right? It could be really any veteran player, but I think the whole idea of, disciplining, quote unquote, a younger player, a 20 or 21-year-old versus a 34-year-old who's not really going to have any growth in his game is just that, right? You want a younger player to grow in their game. So you want to be able to do what you feel is right in order for them to get to that next level. And sometimes that involves having them sit in the press box or playing them lower in the lineup, ultimately so they can, figure it out and grow their game. Benching Leo, doing whatever with Leo isn't going to do anything for him in particular, because he's not someone that they're trying to develop at this point. So,
when you before you grow up, I want to respond, but I want to let Phil finish the point. I will respond, Grump.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I agree with you, Phil. But the whole thing, maybe it might not help Leo Komarov, but you know what it does? It helps the rest of the team by putting the best players on the ice. That's all I care about. I'd rather have the young guys make some mistakes early in the year so we're ready to play come playoff time. I could care less if Leo Komarov ever plays. You know what you're getting from him, which is nothing. Travis Zajac, you know you're getting nothing from him. Oliver Wahlstrom, what's he doing in the postseason? He's got his feet up eating popcorn because he's not deemed good enough to play because we were winning with Travis Zajac. I don't know how. He did nothing out there. It was like we're playing men short. You have Matt Barzal playing on the helicopter line, right? It's just a disgrace.
When you talk about, hey, he wants to discipline young guys, I do agree, right? You want to be able to discipline young guys. It's able to motivate and maybe able to elevate their game. The issue, though, with it is when you discipline the young guy, there has to be the light at the end of the tunnel. I can't say you've scored 3 goals, but I didn't like the way you went back on defense. I didn't like whatever you did. It's not okay because of that. Now you're never going to see ice time the rest of the season. It's okay. You're going to get benched for a game or two. You're going to work out your kinks. You're going to show it in practice, and you're going to be back in the lineup with another chance. There has to be the light at the tunnel. There has to be, what do they say? The proverbial, there has to be the carrot. You have to offer the carrot for the young player too. It's not just, I wasn't even looking at you, Grump, but I was just thinking, hey, you just slamming the whip. It has to be the little carrot, in my opinion. I have no issue, though, with disciplining young players. I think he does it a little more than others without some of the carrot.
I mean, what's the difference between Matt Barzal, Mitch Marner, and Jack Eichel? Right? Which player has achieved the most success in their career so far? I'm not talking about individual success. Which player has seen the most amount of success?
I'd say they're all equal.
Oh, I'd say Mitch Marner.
No, it's Barzal. I'm not talking about individual success. I'm talking about who has tasted the greatest amount of victory so far. It's Barzal. Barzal's played in like 45 playoff games. Barzal's played in more playoff games than Tavares has in his career already.
Here's
it. Double check that. And Barzal's produced in the playoffs, right? Mitch Marner is 18 straight playoff games without a goal. Jack Eichel has never seen the playoffs before, right? Mitch Marner, you hear, word coming out from writers in Toronto that when they were on a snide of like 1 for 40 on the power play during the regular season with all those big guns, a lot of it had to do with the fact that Mitch Marner was adamant about the position he played on the power play and wasn't going to yield to the coach, and the coaches didn't bite back, right? What does that do for a player, and what does that do for a team? So you could get frustrated at Barry for giving Barzal a shift off here and there, but the bottom line is ultimately it works.
Okay, here's my issue with it, Phil. Here is my issue. He punishes the young guys and lets the old guys skate when they make the same mistakes. That's an issue. That's an issue because guess what? If it's good enough for Matt Barzal, the best player on the team, it's good enough for Croc Nelson, that useless dog who plays the right wing on the second line, Josh, piece of garbage, Bailey, all of them. It's good enough for all of them. Leo Komarov, when you're taking a 5-minute penalty and then you come out and you don't mark your man and your guy scores a winning goal, you absolutely should be benched for that. You shouldn't be rewarded and being treated like you're great, Leo, just because you play cards with Lou and Barry on the bus between the airport. No.
I want to answer your question. Who's had the most success? None of them had success. Absolutely. I mean, they're all professional athletes. Unless you're winning the cup, you're not successful. That's always, that's a standpoint Grumpy's taken. That's a standpoint I've taken. The cup is always the pinnacle. Sure, I would say making it to the Eastern Conference Finals, it's important, right? But let's say later on down the road, that's all they ever achieve. None of these people ever win a cup. When all is said and done, you look back on history, they'll all be considered the same because they'll never have a cup. That's why the pinnacle, hey, what are you talking about? Success as an individual, as a player, or as a team, it's always about winning the cup. People don't remember who makes it the Eastern Conference Final. They don't remember who loses in the Stanley Cup Final. They only remember who wins a cup.
Yeah, I think Matt Barzal is the most talented out of all three of those players. And I think that's why he stands out. When you brought about your boy, F- Kyle Palmieri, in the playoffs, he did put up numbers. He with the guy with one hip and a guy who, they're playing an empty net against Pittsburgh. When they finally find a goalie, what did he do? Nothing, Phil, nothing. I'll
let Phil respond.
Listen, no one on that line did anything, right? You had the geriatric with, Travis Zajac, who, ran out of gas. You had JG Pageau, who no one talks about this, but the biggest problem with that line was Pageau. He couldn't skate and he couldn't shoot, right? If you were going to take out anyone there to get Wahlstrom in, it realistically probably should have been Pageau.
So are you making an excuse for Kyle Palmieri's lack of performance? And I'm just asking because, when we talked about Kiefer Bellows earlier, you didn't cut him any slack when he's playing with Ross Johnston on that wing. That's not a problem. When we bring up that he played on the first line, he put up goals. Phil, I'll just say you're kind of using selective with your facts. That's all I'm saying.
Kiefer Bellows had as much ice time with Josh Bailey and Brock Nelson last year as he did. Actually, he had more ice time with Josh Bailey and Brock Nelson when Beauvillier went out last year than he did with JG Pageau and Ross Johnston, and he did nothing with it.
That's more roster scrap. Those two guys are garbage. That second line doesn't go unless Beauvillier goes.
Beauvillier works well with them.
Yeah, because Beauvillier drives that line. Beauvillier is the line driver. Just like Kiefer Bellows plays with Matt Barzal, a line driver, and what does he do? He produces. I'm just saying, I just see with my eyes. I don't need the facts. I don't need to look at some little spreadsheet to tell me, Phil. I know what I see. I see him playing with the big guy. All of a sudden, he's scoring goals. That's all I know. And Croc Nelson and Josh Bailey.
Stop. Give Brock Nelson his respect. Come on.
He was not.
Brock Nelson is the lead scorer in the Beauty League right now. Grumpy,
Yeah,
come on. He's got 30 goals in 4 games or something like that. Come on, give the man his respect.
You follow the Beauty League, right, Grumpy? You watch every game.
I see highlights, and you want to know who else is doing really good in the Beauty League? Kiefer freaking Bellows. That's who.
Zach Parise, I thought was doing well. Honestly,
Zach Parise, he's not in the Beauty League. He's in the Geezer League. I
couldn't even tell you. I don't care about watching the Beauty League. It looks, honestly, I've watched him play. It looks like a borderline beer league. I don't think there's too much. I don't think there's too much checking. I mean, like, obviously the caliber of the players are up there, but it's just kind of like hey, we just want you to keep your legs loose. We want you to be ready when you come back in the season.
It's all-star game rules. It's essentially all-star game rules. There's no checking. There's barely any defense. It's just skate up the ice. I mean, these are NHL goaltenders, but when you get a million grade A opportunities, you're going to score on them. But Brock Nelson happens to be doing it the best right now. So don't be hating on Brock Nelson, Grumpy.
He always hates it. He's hated on Brock Nelson. I've always been a honk for Brock Nelson. This is back before when he was originally drafted. I was always a big fan of Brock. So I'm happy to see him finally being able to find some consistency under Barry Trotz. Yeah, I tell you, it's
nice way to take a stand there, TJ.
It's a stand against the Grump. It's a stand against things you say. So
there you go. There you go.
Hey, Grumpy. I try to play it fair and even.
I just want to bring something up.
Good.
TJ always says how he's bringing in all the guests, right? He brings in his friends, Tommy Baffy, Phil's Facts, who I think he's bringing in an Islander. Well, I have a guest that I bring in on September 8th. A former Stanley Cup winner is going to be on the podcast live. So,
yeah, and Grumpy, it should feed the narrative. People say that you're a Rangers fan. He's got an ex-Ranger.
He did win a cup with the New York Rangers back in 1993-94. He did.
Yes, he did. And we got Rob Schremp's coming on the podcast too. And it's definitely going to be a fun-filled summer. We're going to have some guests on there to help pass the time. I mean, hell, if we're going to be sitting here and Lou's not doing anything, man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. That's why I love having guests like Phil's Fact on there because he.
Well, let me ask you guys something. In the free agency market this year, let's just realistically look at it, right? In terms of the upgrades that you want to make, you wanted to make an upgrade on Nick Leddy, hopefully. And again, we still have no idea what's going to be done there. Will it be a young player? Will it be Thomas? We don't know, right? And then everyone had this grandiose idea that, we're going to sign Landeskog, who never actually made it to free agency, right? Colorado has the luxury of the 8th year. That was never going to happen, right? Even if he hit the open market, he probably would have looked around, fielded a bunch of offers, went back to Colorado and settled on something. So at that point in the free agency market, was there anyone that you two identified as a player that you feel, well, that's a player that we really missed out on, right? I would much rather have had that player than Kyle Palmieri.
Like Grump and I disagree on this. I like Kyle Palmieri. I just want it to be on a friendly deal for us. If it's not, that's when you're going to have me having issues. I've always seen, and I think that Pellick's deal was a team-friendly deal, in my opinion. But in the past, we have not signed necessarily team-friendly deals for some of these individuals and players. I'd like to see that being a trend going forward, especially because, hey, we're in Stanley Cup contention every single year. We're no longer a laughingstock. We're a team that, if you want to win a cup, you feel like this is a team that could do so. I felt like always the player that could fill the role is Tarasenko if healthy. And that's a big if. I haven't seen his medical, never will. I have no idea how his shoulder looks. I tend to believe him if he said, hey, he went to Mr. Outside Doctor and the third shoulder surgery finally did the job. But the longer it goes on and drags out, it makes me think either one or two things. St. Louis's asking price is either way too high, the Islanders are looking to underpay, or they have no issue and the shoulder is an actual issue.
Well, the only information that's come out on that was Elliot Friedman 2 weeks ago after the Devils signing Tatar said that the Devils team was not thrilled with this is what he heard, Elliot Friedman, and he's not some scrub. He's a legit insider. The Devils team was not thrilled with what they saw with Tarasenko's shoulder. And that is probably what the holdup is over here, right? If you're getting a Tarasenko who you're not sure if his shoulder is going to hold up for 100 games or how effective he's going to be, at that point, taking him for free is not free because $7.5 million in cap space, not this year, but next year is the more important year for the Islanders because of Pulock. That costs you, right? At that point, that costs you.
Yeah. What was the question that was asked by Phil?
Well, he wanted to know what type of free agents. I'll let you mull it over. I will say this, let's say worst case scenario, Tarasenko ends up being a dud. He tears his shoulder for a fourth time, tear a shoulder, never plays again. Or let's say he tries to come back after his fourth torn shoulder. You have to believe that in some way, shape, or form, just as you'd mentioned, that Josh Bailey was going back in some capacity. Let's say, hey, we let him go, and Josh Bailey's there. I mean, you still had Kyle Palmieri, you still have Oliver Wahlstrom, and you could find somebody to fill in on a third-line right-wing position to pay him cheap. And even if you feel like, hey, this is not, somebody long-term we can get, there's going to be a vet next year that will be available that you can have slide into the third-line right-wing role. Just the same way that Parise is going to slide into third line left wing role.
What if Tarasenko doesn't tear his shoulder, but he's just bad?
What?
Then he could be Zach Parise. Then he could just be Zach Parise.
If I'm putting the odds of what I think the chances are for that, I think the likelihood of him tearing his shoulder again or being healthy and playing and picking back up where he left off are significantly higher. I don't think now that he's torn his shoulder 3 times, you won't be able to shoot the puck. That's not you'd like to think that his motion and mobility in that shoulder is still fine. He's still going to be able to wrist the puck the same way he did. I don't think he'd come here, be healthy, and be a flop.
I don't understand the negativity between you two. You're so negative. You should be positive like the grumpy old man is.
I want Phil to give a response.
Okay.
All I'm saying is if Tarasenko's range of motion has been affected by, listen, he had 4 goals in 24 games last year, right? If his shoulder is not what it once was because of these 3 procedures, and maybe it limited his range of motion. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to diagnose what he had. And that's the case. Like people keep saying, oh, well, if he sucks, we'll just put him on LTIR. That's not the way it works, right? Andrew Ladd just showed us that you could suck really bad and have 2 knee surgeries, and you still can't go on LTIR unless the player is right for LTIR, right? Because otherwise that's known as something called insurance fraud. So, and Lou's not the kind of guy that's going to do that. So,
but he did that in Toronto. He did that in Toronto, Phil, with Stefan Robidas. They call it the Robidas effect. That's what they call it up there in Toronto. He did that.
Did he go on LTIR?
Yes.
Okay, I want to say maybe there's something we don't know about. Maybe is the reason why he went on LTIR. All you have to do is you have to be able to prove that he would miss. You'd have to be able to prove that he would miss 10 games or something like 2 weeks of time or something along those lines. But I am familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. And answer your question of who are the free agents who were available? None. There were none who blew my skirt up. Not a one. You're right. Landeskog was never leaving Colorado. You look at some of these Islander fan sites and, I read them for entertainment value. And it's like, oh, yeah, we can get Landeskog and, we'll move Komarov and Thomas Hickey's contract and that'll bring in Landeskog. No, Landeskog was never leaving Colorado, never wanted to leave. Tarasenko is the answer. And sometimes, you know what? You just got to roll the dice. If he comes up bust, it's only 2 years at $7.5 million. Only 2 years. And that's why I'm willing to roll the dice. I think if he comes here, he'd be a perfect fit with Matt Barzal. Shoot him up every game. Whatever you got to do, get him out there.
Is that cortisone shot? It's cortisone shot every single time before he goes out there in a game. I think there's a limit on how much cortisone you can get to that shoulder, Grum.
I'm with Grumpy here. Listen, and if you need load management, if you need to sit him for 15 games throughout the season, I'm fine with that too. I'm with you. If you're sending out Josh Bailey and bringing back Tarasenko, assuming the medicals look good or decent, I'm willing to take that risk, right? Landeskog, like you said, he wasn't going to leave Colorado, and look at what it did to Colorado. That wasn't a free ride for them. They lost Grubauer. They had to give up a first round pick and a pretty good young defenseman for Darcy Kemper, who's played 1 full NHL season. They weren't able to bring back Saad. They lost Donskoy in the expansion draft and didn't have any money to replace him. Contract dollars are not free.
And I would be remiss if I did not throw out there my complaint with signing guys who are 28, 29 years old to 8-year deals or 29-year-olds to 7-year contracts. They never work out for those type players. And Landeskog is going to – now, here's the thing. Landeskog was infinitely better than Anders Lee. But with the style that he plays, he's not going to be worth that money when he turns 35, 36 years old either. They're just not. Their game is not predicated on skill. They're more of rough and tumble, all around players as opposed to someone who can skate. Skating is the great equalizer, and if it's not one of your great skills, you're not going to age well. I mean, not like me anyway.
I'll let Phil respond to that.
I mean, he's definitely, I wouldn't call him an unskilled player. He could move pretty well, Landeskog. But listen, when you pay for a UFA, you know what you're getting. You're getting someone who you hope to be able to, propel you to a Stanley Cup within your window of contention, which the Islanders feel that they're in right now. And when they signed that Lee deal, which wasn't a team discount, but it wasn't above market, right? I mean, the market would have paid him that. The market probably would have paid him more, right? Rumor was that Montreal or Columbus were looking at about $9 million for him. So
bye-bye.
Listen, I wouldn't say that it was an incredible discount he gave us. I think Brock Nelson gave us a pretty good discount when you look at what Kevin Hayes and Matt Duchene signed for that year, especially since he only took 6 years, right? Getting someone to take 6 years.
I'll tell you, the market. But like Brock Nelson's a guy too, where he had 1 year. What was it? The 1 year of success under Trotz before he signed that long-term contract. And I look at Duchene, I said, this is a guy who's done it before in the past. I'm looking at track record. He's got a longer one. Kevin Hayes, the deal, as soon as you sign it, you're just like, what the hell is going on there? Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I think the Kevin Hayes deal was a bad one. And Duchene, they thought that, hey, the prior performance was going to go ahead and replicate here in the future. And that just hasn't been the case.
Nelson was one of like 8 players in the NHL who had 7 straight seasons of like 19 plus goals or something, right? I mean, I think we're used to the Brock Nelson who would like go missing for half the year, but the guy always had not great, but really good, consistent goal scoring ability over the course of an 82 game season. That's not something that comes cheap, right? You're not going to get a guy who could score money in the bank, 20 plus goals every single year at the center position for less than $6 million on the open market. And getting him at 6x6 in that environment, I thought was incredible.
Yeah, I think the fact that the reason why he didn't cost as much is because he only had 1 year where he was consistently good. And that was the first year under Trotz. Before that, you could say he was underwhelming. Yeah, he scored 19 goals every year, but a lot of them were, we're losing 6-1. He'd pot a couple at the end. They were never clutch goals, and he was underwhelming.
Well, when you look at total point production before under Trotz, he'd never had a season with more than 45 points. Yeah. And I'm not saying points are everything, but you're playing top 6 minutes. You want your guys to be able to put the puck in the net, to contribute there through assists.
And you earn a name like Croc. It's because when you play like shit for so many years, that's how you earn that name. Now, under Barry Trotz, he has been much, much better. I think out of every player in the Islander organization, he has benefited the most from Barry Trotz's coach.
Yeah, he got the Trotz. We call it the Trotz bump, right? When they come to Long Island, their numbers just get boosted, right? Brock Nelson, Val Filppula, Derek Brassard, right? These guys, they all come and play under Trotz, and all of a sudden their offensive productivity goes through the roof, right? That's what Grumpy always says.
And I see, I also see the Trotz bump with guys like Matt Barzal just in the wrong direction. Hey, yeah.
It's only Matt Barzal.
Yeah, your best player has dropped point production by like 20 points on average there, what it would be on a season. You're just kind of like, yeah. So, I mean, like,
let him make a mistake. Let him make a mistake. To the bench you go.
He's improved. I've always said it. I don't care what his offensive production is all that much. The offense will come with him, but I think as a player, he's improved immensely. He always would.
He has benefited from Barry Trotz's coach, yes. I just think that it just drives me crazy when he benches them. When he lets old guys get away with the same crap that he gets benched for, they slide. That's the only problem I have with Barry Trotz, really, and his refusal to play younger players. Because if you can't smoke, if you can't drink cognac or whatever it is, some old person drink, you're not going to be pals on my team. I'm going to sit the young guys. You're just still drinking soda pop because you're not old enough to drink alcohol yet.
I would be concerned if he, at a postseason presser, looked as miserable as Eichel and Marner did. I'm just going to say it, right? If it is not apparent that Barzal has a problem with it, maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. He has a good way of holding it in. But if it's going to keep him from being what Marner is in the past 3 playoffs, then sit him for a shift once in a while if you need to.
Just make sure you sit the other pieces of garbage that are on this team when they make the same mistakes. That's all I'm saying. Don't punish the best player on your team when you let everybody else slide, because I think if it was me, it would put a sour taste in my mouth. What am I, chopped liver here? I got Anders Lee. He won't mark anybody coming out of the zone. He just stands in front of the net. I mean, he's just so average, and you don't see him get punished. Leo Komarov, 5-minute penalty, right? Let Matt Barzal take a 5-minute penalty. What happens? He gets castrated in the post-game press conference. Leo Komarov, well, you know what? It's okay. You know what? Leo's a veteran. I trust him. Yeah.
Do we think Leo Komarov's going to be on the team this year?
Yes, he will. Absolutely will be on.
Really?
I'm not saying he's going to play every night, but he will make the team.
He's going to make the 23-man roster.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
TJ.
It's tough, right? Here I am. I'm gonna do my role, guys, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna sit on the fence. So this is gonna make, I'm sure, Grumpy very happy. Right? I think he likes Leo Komarov. I think, when we're thinking about
you think he made him a first-line winger. You think he likes him? A guy who was a healthy scratch somehow becomes a first-line winger.
Okay, let me ask you this, Grumpy. Is Travis Zajac making the roster?
Yes.
No.
So your two extras, you're telling me your two extras are Zajac and Komarov. We're waiving Panik, we're waiving Johnston, we're waiving Bellows, we're waiving Koivula.
I heard Bellows again.
Bellows
won't be here. He'll be moved in some capacity. He'll be gone. I think we're going to make some sort of move. I don't think Bellows is going to be here. The Pjanic, that's always kind of shocked me. I'm like, okay, where is he going to fit in? That's a guy who's going to be, third line fodder. But could I see him as a healthy scratch? Maybe. Sure. I think they're all interchangeable. I don't think Zajac signs with the Islanders with the intention of, hey, you're going to be in Bridgeport. I don't think that. I guess maybe Leo might go to Bridgeport, but even if that's the case, I think that he likes Leo. I think that he likes Leo. He was the first guy off the bench. Same thing with the Zajac. Do I think Pjanic is going to be, the guy coming off the bench now? I don't know. Jury's out on that one. I know if you move him down there to Bridgeport, I know his cap at, what is it, like less than $1 million or something like that. I know they retained half the salary on him too when we originally moved.
200,000. It'll be Panic's buried penalty would be 200,000. If he got sent down to Bridgeport. I think it's going to be, if you had to have it, Zajac, you're 100% right. Zajac at 36 years old is not taking that phone call and saying that I'm signing up to go to Bridgeport. I think it's prearranged. You're probably looking at a Vetman deal, $750, and he's your 5C, right? If the centerman goes down, he's going to be the first guy that's going to be slotted in there, wherever that might be. The other forward, a lot of people think it's going to be Ross. A lot of people think that because the Rangers added toughness to their lineup, people think that Ross might not clear waivers. I think Ross will clear waivers. I don't think it's going to be Ross, but I think it's going to be, if Bellows isn't traded, it wouldn't surprise me if they are averse to exposing Bellows to waivers and want to keep him, or if it's Panik. Panik is definitely a more skilled player than Leo Komarov. Part of the reason, I think, if you just look at the math as to why Panik was included in the deal, I think Detroit probably just wanted to make the actual dollars make sense, because Panik has a cash hit higher than his cap hit. Leddy has a cash hit significantly higher than his cap hit. So I think that kind of evened out some of the accounting over there. But Panik is certainly a better, younger option than Leo off the bench, and can slot in, more appropriately for an injured Beauvillier or for an injured, Parise or whatever it may be.
But do we see kind of what that sounds like? Hey, our guys off the bench, our healthy scratches are Travis Zajac and Panik. That's nothing necessarily get titillated or get your fancy high on. Yikes! I've always been a big believer of. I want to see. I know you're not a big Otto Koivula fan. I want to see Otto Koivula with a little bit more of an extended time period. I do. I like the hands on the guy. I like his body. I think that he's a guy who maybe under Trotz can grow. We've seen players see a little bit of the Trotz bump. Maybe this is a guy who can get a little bit of the Trotz bump. Leave him stuck down there in Bridgeport. You have to believe that he has some sort of value. If you never plan on using him, get rid of him.
Okay, Phil. I'm just going to let you know before you attack DJ on Otto Koivula, you're attacking his boy. I'm just telling you right now. He's one of his favorites. When he has a favorite, he goes down swinging with that favorite. Now you take it from there.
Otto Koivula had one really good season in Bridgeport where he was propped up by Josh Hosang and a good deal by Michael Dalcole, who is a very good AHL player, right? We were talking before about, Aho was an all-star in the AHL. Well, Michael Dalcole was an AHL all-star and a point-per-game player down there, right? So AHL, NHL doesn't necessarily translate. Otto Koivula, he's just too slow. I remember they gave him that 5-game look, and he was just significantly worse than Cole Bardreau. Bardreau actually moved with purpose and looked like he knew what he was doing out there. Koivula just looked like he was barely staying up on his skates. This year in Bridgeport was an absolute disaster for him. He was benched a couple times, got demoted to the 4th line. They had to keep him away from some of the skill players because he had 2 goals in 21 games, and one of them was in a 3-on-3 situation. He's not going to be an NHL player. Even the Athletic, the all-knowing Athletic, knocked him off the list of players who have NHL potential.
So you talk about the years in the past, right? Hey, everybody knew he burst on the scene where they say, hey, you're finally going to play center. We're going to migrate you away from the wing. He's still averaging about, 0.8 points a game. It's the same thing the year after 2019, 2020 in Bridgeport. This last season, when you look at what he did in the Finnish Elite League, guys on close to averaging, again, 0.8 points a game in the Finnish Elite League. Brett Thompson and the Bridgeport Sound Tigers have been dead last in scoring the last 2 years. And then 3 years ago, I believe they're bottom 3 in the AHL in scoring. So I'm noticing a sort of a trend here. The forwards aren't necessarily footing the bill, and maybe he just doesn't have the players to play with down there. I know he's only got 2 goals in 20 games, but I do happen to notice it's a consistent trend down there.
Yeah, their team was terrible last year, but
4-2 in the year after 3 years ago.
Yeah, last year it was pretty simple, right? Like what happened at the end of the year for the Sound Tigers? They started scoring a lot of goals and they started winning a lot of games, right? They won like 7 of their last 10 games. Why? Why was that?
Well, I know you're going to bring up Jeremy Swayman.
Exactly. Because Jeremy Swayman got brought up to the Boston Bruins, right? When you're playing half your games against Jeremy Swayman, heck, the Islanders couldn't score on him either, right? He had a .945 save percentage or something against NHL teams. So imagine the big Bridgeport Sound Tigers having to play half their games against Swayman, right? Once he was brought up, all of a sudden they started beating the Providence Bruins. How
about the Bruins? I know it's not a Bruins podcast, but how about the Bruins making that huge move for Ullmark when they've got Swayman who produces? It makes you think, okay, what's the value they have in a guy like Swayman? Again, like Tuukka Rask.
They don't trust him. You played a guy with one hip against the Islanders, and here's the thing: Swayman was good in the regular season. They didn't trust him. Butch Cassidy, Bruce Cassidy did his best Barry Trotz imitation. I'm not going to trust the young guy. I'm going to roll with the guy who's got one hip. Think about that. Tristan Jarry, Tuukka Rask. If Jarry even pretends he's an NHL goalie, we don't beat Pittsburgh. Okay, then this whole offseason is different. Tuukka Rask, if he had more than one labrum, guess what? We would have probably lost to Boston too. But what does it tell you about Swayman, right? They didn't trust him. Bottom line. And Ullmark isn't the answer there. He's not the answer.
Ullmark's season this year, would lead you to believe if he was behind any other defense, he probably would have won the Vezina. I think he had like a 9. TJ, you could look this up, but he had like a 915 plus on Buffalo. His numbers were pretty incredible this year. I don't think he's worth the investment they made in him. But Grumpy, the one-hit wonder, Tuukka Rask, took pretty good care of your Washington Capitals in 5 games, right?
917. Yeah, his numbers were good for the Buffalo Sabres, but it's a guy who's always. When he originally started there for Buffalo, they always envisioned him to be, hey, this is our guy. This is our guy. Never paying that to be. Remember when they originally traded for Robin Leonard? That was always the envision. This is our guy. I don't even get me started on Buffalo. It's the Oakland or Los Angeles Raiders of the NHL.
Yeah. Okay. Phil took a little cheap shot there, trying to negate the injury to Tuukka Rask. He was injured most of the year. He was injured most of the year, and he played through it. That's why Swayman played, was because he had that injury. They didn't know if it was a back. It wound up being the torn hip labrum. And he was okay. He had some good games against Washington, but there were times you could tell. He got progressively worse, his mobility. And I just think it caught up with him against the Islanders. Here's the thing. Washington, as much as I think Peter Laviolette's a good coach, Boston just wanted it more if you know what I mean. And I think against the Islanders, you're never going to see a team that wants it more than the Islanders. I really don't believe that. And I think that kind of got us through in tight games. Tuukka, you could tell he was struggling out there. You could tell he was physically struggling. I thought it was a back. I didn't realize it was the hip. And, some of those goals, he just looks slow coming across. And I think that cost them. But nice try, Phil. Nice try to attack me.
No, his lateral movement in game 5 and 6 just really weren't there. I think game 6, no matter who plays that game 6, the Islanders were not going to lose that game at the Coliseum. And Cassidy probably knew that too, and may not have wanted to, throw a 21 or 22-year-old into the Coliseum with that raucous barn in a series clinching game. But again, Boston went up 2-1. Rask looked like he was playing well. Islanders tie it up. Game 5, the Islanders were really not doing well to start, and then kind of stormed back, and then were able to hold on late. And I think by game 6, it was too late already, and Cassidy's just like, screw it, I'm just going with Tuukka.
I think that whole series changed after the hit on Brandon Carlo.
Agreed.
Because then they had McAvoy, and that's it. Their defense was not good, which enabled us to do some things that we normally wouldn't be able to do. And I think that, that and the Rask injury is why we didn't beat Boston, honestly.
I think the series really also changed in game 5 when Marchand didn't tuck in that empty netter that would have sent them up 2-0.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just, listen, there was a lot of opportunistic luck that the Islanders had in their first 2 series, right? Even in that overtime game in game 5 where a shot from the point hit Sorokin square in the shin when he wasn't even looking. Right, that would have ended the game for. I mean, there were so many of those bounces, and unfortunately against Tampa, they just didn't get any. Right, you had Palmieri robbed like 4 times at point blank. Right.
Well, that's because he sucks. That's because he sucks, Phil. That's because he's just not that good. When you have to play a goalie with more than one hip, or a guy who has never played, it's like Pittsburgh rolled me out there in net. Yeah, we know you haven't played goal for 40 years, Grumpy. We're gonna put you out there anyway. Grumpy Jari. TJ, do we have any comments today?
We do. I did have one more question before we start grabbing the comments. Now, if you're going into this season, and again, I know everything is dependent on the shoulder, but some people believe, and I want to get your opinion on this as of today. Again, we are still in the off season, but can the Islanders roll out essentially the same cast and crew we did last year with the addition of Kyle Palmieri, the subtraction of Jordan Eberle, and maybe we're able to find a comparable replacement to Nick Leddy and still say, hey, I feel confident that the Islanders are winning the Stanley Cup?
You want me?
That's a question. No, I know your answer, Grumpy.
Let's go to Phil's answer. You know my answer. Go, Phil.
They certainly would not be a favorite to win the Stanley Cup by any means. I would say they're probably top 3 in the division. I would put them maybe behind Carolina. Washington didn't really do anything this offseason that impressed me. Same with Pittsburgh. I would put them top 3 in the division. And then it's a matter of, what they're able to potentially pull off at the trade deadline that could help get them to that next level and, kick it into high gear in the postseason, right? Their past 2 postseasons have been, fueled in a big way through the first 2 series wins by trade deadline acquisitions, right? In the first year, Pajot had 7 or 8 goals in his first postseason with them, and they don't get as far as they do in the bubble year without him. And then last year, without Palmieri putting up 7 goals in the first 2 series, I don't think they get as far without him either. So it's going to take a heck of a lot of, better injury luck this year for sure. But I think they're definitely a postseason team. But I would not say that they're a favorite to win the Stanley Cup. No.
Phil, you got that damn TJ disease where you just can't answer the question. It was
no. He did. He said.
I know, but I didn't want.
I mean, can they win the Stanley Cup? Sure, they can. Do I think they will? If I had to put money down, no, I don't think they will.
There you go.
Phil. But again, you're talking about a league that has 32 teams, right? If you play the percentages and you pick out any singular one team, I would say about pretty much every single team, I don't think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. I don't think Tampa's going to win the Stanley Cup this year.
I don't think Tampa's going to win the Stanley Cup this year either. But I know it's not going to be the Islanders. That much I can guarantee you. Let me tell you something. The Red Wings Buffalo has just as much chance of winning the Stanley Cup as the Islanders do, which is not happening. Just not happening.
On that note, let's start grabbing.
I thought your last question was going to be, man, Phil, button-up shirt. You're looking sharp over there. I got to say.
He's looking sharp.
Yeah.
He's looking sharp. He came
See,
on. He came on Business Professional today, Grumpy, and you're here wearing
Always
a
business
shirt.
professional.
I just want to, yeah, my shirt says, you see, I'm not like the boss. I am the boss. And, here's the thing. Now, if Phil had subscribed and watched the TJ and the Grumpy Old Man podcast, where you could learn a lot of other things, he would realize that TJ just wears a tank top on that podcast, and he gets called out for it. You would have heard how TJ thought he was going to kick Ronda Rousey's butt still today. He thought he could do that.
Still today, please. Grumpy. It's no worries to hash that up here. That being said, I want to start jumping into some comments. Coach Tommy B saying, hello, TJ Grumpy, old man. Good to see you guys. And then Brian P saying, BP and D-Cut representing. Scott L saying hello. Tommy B said, rumor has it the Grumpy old man getting his couch repaired last week. That's why we didn't have a podcast. Is that true, Grumpy?
Not true. I want to give a shout out to Isles Misery. Why? Because they support us. There are some other Islander fan groups who don't like the Grumpy Old Man and his realistic spin on things. We've been banned from their website. Yes, Tommy Bappy, I'm talking to you.
Goodness
And
gracious.
your little minions.
Alexander said, what's up, guys? We might be close on getting Tarasenko. I don't know. I feel like that's going to be one of those things we're going to be waiting till training camp starts September 22nd. Yeah,
I love Alexander. He's a Miami Dolphins fan. He roots for Tua, the noodle arm, Tunga Bailoa. And come October 10th, he's going to be wildly disappointed when Tom Brady goes in there and just buries the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, goodness gracious. Tommy B saying, how are you, Phil?
Doing good, Tommy.
Jason C with the Grumpy. And then Rich Arnold said, the dude never starts on time. Yeah, maybe I got, hey.
That's your rep.
I think it's because you go ahead and try to make that a rep for me.
No, it's not, because you say 8:00 and people are ready. 8:00. Okay, we're ready to listen. 8:10, 8:15, 8:20. I'm like, dude, get down there on time. When I bring my guests on, let me tell you something. You better start on time.
Everyone comes with their, they've got their TV sets on, dinner's at the table, the family's there, chairs are tucked in, and they're waiting for TJ. I'm telling you, that's the way it is at my house.
He rips me. Let me tell you something, Phil. If something happens where I'm 2 seconds late, or we want to get on at 10 minutes to, or something like that, I'm like, okay. And if it's 7 minutes to, where are you? And then we still don't start the podcast till quarter after.
Come on, TJ, clean it up.
I know. Then I hear the impact it does have on so many individuals and so many families. I've got to make a better effort. I apologize. Alexander saying, you know what, TJ, just let Grumpy start promoting the podcast.
Yeah, because you suck at it.
Oh, D-Cut saying the human Ambien has arrived. I'd say it wasn't Ambien-esque today.
No, it's funny. He's been coming at you, Phil. I know he's not talking about me. He's been coming out. D-Cut?
I do not, but that's fine. That's fine.
And Michael T said, good evening, guys. I hope you're all doing well. So are we trading Mayfield for Tarasenko? I could not imagine it.
No. Michael T, he wanted to come up and, because, he used to have a Mets hat, and it was real easy for me to pick on him. But he puts up the picture with Dennis Potvin with the rings. I can't really get too angry at him. So I think he did that on purpose.
Oh, goodness gracious. Brian B saying, evening all. What's up, Brian B? Okay,
my brother from another mother right there.
That's it. Grumpy old man still has his wagon with wooden wheels. That's how you're getting around, Grumpy?
Why isn't my podcast on your website, Tommy?
No, stop.
There you go. You want to take a shot at me? I'll shoot right back, baby.
JK said, 2 minutes specifically here on Facebook, Lou from the landline is not here for obvious reasons. Yeah, he's out working. Lou from the landline. He's out getting items and deals done. He's checking out medical records. He's getting his doctors looking over things. I hope we're not waiting until September 22nd, but I have a feeling that's going to be.
No, it won't be September 22nd. We're not going to do anything. He'll just announce it. I just love it. I love it. In Lou we trust, right? Lou's so smart. He's playing 3D chess, and everybody else is playing checkers. It's so ridiculous. He's not announcing deals because he's afraid somebody's going to swoop in and steal one of our restricted free agents. No one goes after restricted free agents. It's just it's a lie. It's a lie. Here's the thing. He's hoping that everyone will forget when the season starts the bad deals that he signed these ever-aging veterans to.
I mean, listen, it's definitely strange because last year was the only offseason we've ever really seen him do that, right? His first 2 off seasons, the deals came right away, right? He signed, I think, Komarov, Filppula, Leonard, did the Matt Martin trade. He did that all within like the first 2 days. And then the year before, he took care of Brock Nelson and Jordan Eberle before free agency even started. And then he got Lee, Varlamov done that same day. And then there were, Brassard later on in the offseason. Last season, again, there was a little bit of a puzzle. A lot of teams had the same kind of situation where you were offloading salary cap. They had the whole Boychuk thing, trying to figure out from a medical standpoint as to whether or not he was going to be fit to play or go on LTIR. So it took a little bit longer. Here, they have an abundance of cap space right now, right? Putting Boychuk on LTIR gets them close to $18 million. And then when you just count the bodies, there's 2 more people that need to be waived down to the minors. So really, they've got about 20 and change million to play with right now. So if he's not working on something, right, and Tarasenko's still sitting in St. Louis, well, what else is it?
Well, let me ask you this. Now, do you consider this offseason a failure if we don't bring in some sort of big fish? Let's say we just tote the status quo. I know you said, hey, we're not the favorites to win. Do you consider that a failure this offseason? Phil Fax, this is for you, not for Grumpy.
I would, just because they've got their finances so in order, and you may have seen Dom's article. I like Dom from The Athletic, right? He ranked the Islanders front office as like the 5th most competent in the NHL right now. And then they have the whole fan confidence ranking, which is obviously higher for every team. But they jumped from like 16 to 5 in Dom's personal rankings. And I think he did a really good job of cleaning up some of the crap this offseason, namely Andrew Ladd, where he was able to offload him really for 2 seconds, which is quite remarkable. And on that basis alone, that makes it somewhat of a success. I'd give it like a B. Like if the cast that we know is coming back as the team that's going to be here, given what was out there in free agency, right? There was no Panarin that we swung and missed on over here, right? It wasn't like in previous off seasons where it's like, oh, I want to get that guy, and we just weren't able to get him. There was not much there. Was there something in the trade market? Well, I would have loved Buchnevich for the price of a 4th liner, but the Rangers weren't doing that with us, right? So that trade wasn't available. So all things considered, given what we've seen in the market and what the Islanders have done so far, they haven't made any major screw up. So on that basis alone, I'd say they're doing okay.
The answer to that question, once again, TJ and his little buddies are so verbose and just don't want to come up with the answer is yes, it will be a failure if we don't sign a big fish. Because why? We don't make the team.
Don't bring in the big fish. Yeah, and this the only thing I think about is we've talked about it before. Man, oh man, we've got such a finite window, and if we're not making every single effort to put our team over the top now, I know Grumpy's not going to be a big fan of this, but I would not mind mortgaging a little bit of the future if that means, hey, we're able to solidify our. Does it you think at the trade deadline we're going to sit on our hands and not do anything? Every single year at the trade deadline, we have a chance. We're mortgaging our future every single time.
I agree with TJ. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're trading your 1st round pick. It could be something else that's of value. But that's why in terms of the off season, right, you give that 1 grade and then you kind of look at the season in totality. If they're in 1st or 2nd place, maybe the move is made by the trade deadline. Maybe that's the more appropriate time to do it. It could be, right? I'm not going to jump to a conclusion on the basis of what is done from between now and the start of the season. I'd rather see how that plays out because we didn't know that we were going to have Pajot 2 years ago, and we didn't know that we were going to have Palmieri last year. I know you hate Palmieri, but he helped. He helped Grumpy. He did help. So if you're talking
counted the most.
I'm sorry?
We acquired him. We were 1st place, 2nd place in our division when we acquired him. At the trade deadline, weren't we in 2nd place when we acquired him at the trade deadline?
Second to Washington, yeah.
Yeah, so we were in 2nd place. He comes in here, and thank goodness the rest of the division was totally in the tank. We probably wouldn't even have made the playoffs. It was that Jersey Devils effect. The New York Devils. Stop bringing those guys in. No, it's a failure.
Scuba Steve said, I always had it in my head that Phil was an old man. I thought he was definitely a younger individual just by when he calls in listening to him. I had to figure he wasn't an old guy.
Sorry, Scuba.
He looks like one of my son's friends.
I'll leave it vague and ambiguous. I like it.
Well, you know who I'm talking about.
Jerry B said, "Oh shit, Phil's on a video. Surprise, surprise, and has hair." That's right. Yep. Phil probably has the most hair on the podcast. Again, it's not saying much, but he does. Most guests do have more hair than myself.
Well, just by the way he's dressing, you can tell he's a business professional. So he's got to keep his act cleaned up a little bit. And the guest that I'm bringing on, who won a Stanley Cup with the New York Rangers, he also has a full head of hair.
Oh God, we're always going to be in the tail end of the hair department unless we're bringing on Coach Tommy B. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, you will, not me.
Oh man. Michael T also said, I don't see how we can trade Mayfield, especially not before replacing Letty somehow. What about Mayfield being a St. Louis guy?
He's not going to St. Louis. Don't worry, Michael T.
I mean, Michael T clearly read the article because all Rutherford did was just look up a little bit of geography, Google search which Islander players are from the St. Louis metro area. Scott Mayfield's from the St. Louis metro area. Maybe they would want to trade for a guy from the St. Louis metro area. No, I don't think it really works that way. If that were the case, everyone would go to Toronto because like a third of the league is from there.
Ooh, taking a shot at Toronto. Look at Phil.
My home city.
You know what? When Phil comes on and he talks with TJ when he's a calling, he's always so so reserved and so positive all the time with his facts. He hangs out with the grumpy old man for an hour and 29 minutes, and now he's kind of getting a little snideness to his comments, throwing shade at St. Louis. All the people who live in St. Louis, Toronto. I mean, just burying everybody. I like it.
Frank K, I'm jealous. He said he's at Citi Field watching those miserable Mets.
Yeah, miserable.
Hey, I'm not so jealous.
No, I wouldn't be jealous. There's nothing to see there.
Jesus, the Mets. Oh, don't even get me started. Frank K said, is the grumpy old man taking yoga classes? I don't know where this came from, but grumpy, I mean, maybe you're looking a little limber today. I don't know. Eli saying, hey, Phil, TJ, and Grumpy, what is up? And Jerry B also saying Art Staple is a crooked copywriting thief.
True.
Brandon Fay said Phil is crazy if he thinks Staples stead stuff or steals stuff.
There's the other point of view. But let me tell you something. Phil's right. When Garth Snow was the GM, Arthur Staple had fresh takes on everything. He seemed like me, Grumpstradamus out there, able to predict the future. But ever since Garth Snow is gone, he's just like everybody else. Lou keeps things close to the vest. He does.
Here's the frustrating thing, right? The Islanders news cycle, the way it works is, it all starts with Staple at the top. So Staple, in my opinion, he goes and tries to like crowdsource ideas. Then he latches onto something. He'll put it in an article, right? Mark Stahl, free agent target for the Islanders. No, he wasn't. Why would they want Mark Stahl, right? All of a sudden, Mark Stahl re-signs with Detroit. And then you have the next layer down, right? The bloggers, of which there are about 50 million of them. Islanders free agent target Mark Stahl, which he never was. It just came from. So it's like this perpetuating news cycle that isn't actually true, where it comes kind of from the masses. It gets filtered all the way up to the top, and then it kind of like trickles all the way back down, and then creates discussion amongst Islanders social media. It's fascinating with absolutely no facts to back it up.
It's like tabloids. It's like reading the tabloids, like the soccer tabloids. And that's right, because he did do that with Mark Stahl. And then it was funny to see, the Islanders Inquirer and everybody else. Oh, Mark Stahl, possible replacement. I did laugh my ass off when I see that. And it's always like that, too. I'm just like, oh, man, do people, when they throw stuff out like that, do they really look into, the situation?
No, it's clickbait. It's all clickbait. That's why people should listen to this show and me. We're not clickbait. We give original opinions. And guess what? They're totally divergent from everyone else in the Islander community. That much I can tell you, because we're not a bunch of bootlicking weasels here.
I always wonder if something like that, if it's maybe if there's a tiny grain of truth in, Arthur Staple or individuals who write, they're looking at this and like, oh shit, there's not much that's going on in the Islanders world. I need something that's going to draw. What would draw better than Mark Stahl, ex-Ranger, possibly going and joining the Islanders? I mean, maybe this could be true, but let's go ahead and break it down. Let's take this, let's take this scenario and break it down. They got to go ahead and have their clicks. They got to have so many words in it and everything like that. I mean, they got to put food on the table. I understand. Come on.
I'm going to tell you what he should do. He should put out an article about Coco, the service dog. That seemed to pull them all in.
Tori. Yeah, I think there was a few more social media posts on Tori, the service dog. Brian P saying, "What up, Phil? Hope we get a top line guy. Not feeling it though."
Nope. Phil, once again, Brian spot on as usual.
Coach Tommy B saying Phil is much better than Arthur Staple for factual Islanders information. So here we go.
Kiss. Why is Tommy Bappy kissing your butt? You know him, don't you? Do you know him?
I know him. I've seen him on your podcast. Other than that, I don't know him. No.
Oh, I thought maybe you saw him rummaging through Lou Lamoriello's garbage to get some of his information. He's the nighttime janitor, you know.
I'm from Toronto. I don't know Long Island people anymore. I've been gone too long.
Okay.
And then
they
Frank
kick you out of the country. Is there a reason?
Listen, happy wife, happy life. You marry a Canadian, you go where the Canadians go.
Okay. All right. I didn't expect you to be truthful. I was trying to get something funny out of you. I should have known better. Don't worry.
Sorry.
Scuba Steve also saying Staple is writing was a crowd. Hold on. Staple is writing was the crowd is tweeting.
What?
Okay.
You meant to write what?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry.
Staple is writing what the crowd is tweeting. He's been doing it all year. He's been doing it for a few years now. Now, you had another comment up there about Bill Pulsifer, and he was part of Generation K when they had, who was the kid who wound up being a reliever for Oakland, who was supposed to be a starter for the Mets? Jason something. I forget. Doesn't matter. It's a long time ago.
And my lack of knowledge, I'm like, what the hell is this? So
it's 30 years ago. It's 30 years ago. They had 3 young pitchers. Wilson was one. Pulsifer was another. And I cannot remember for the life of me the kid who probably had the best Major League Baseball career, wound up being a relief pitcher for the Oakland A's. I cannot remember his name. Sorry.
Brian P. said, my man Grump will be broken up if we lose Josh DeMay Bailey.
That would make my off season. It would. Here's the thing, but nobody wants Josh Bailey. Nobody. 2 expansion drafts. Nobody wants him. Nobody.
We protected him on the first expansion draft.
No, we didn't. He was exposed.
He was exposed, but we specifically made a deal where they weren't going to be drafting anyone.
It
was designed to protect,
Calvin Hahn.
Really Brock Nelson, but the other 2 forwards that they had to leave exposed that would have had some sort of value would have been Bailey and Strong.
Well,
and Calvin Hahn too, I know is one of those big pieces we want to keep, and I always loved it. We made sure we were able to do that, and Calvin DeHaan gets injured that year, and then leaves. Right? What is he going to do?
They paid a lot. It was a first rounder, a second rounder to dump, Grabowski, who would have been LTIR eligible anyways because of his concussion, and then we got them to select JFB.
Yeah,
F. Berube, good old days.
That first round pick, Vegas went and acquired Mark Stone.
You can only pick one player. This team isn't good enough where if you put our top 10 players out there, is anybody from this team really a needle mover past number 1? No. So anyone can go.
I will say, I'm gonna take that and put a positive spin on it for you, Grump. I think that you're saying that Barry Trotz is such an important integral piece to it that it doesn't matter what type of pieces we have on the team, that Barry Trotz is always going to be able to roll out a good lineup. Is that what you're trying to say, Grumpy? Is this a pro Barry Trotz comment?
What I'm trying to say is we're afraid of acquiring high-end talent. So any of the scrubs that play for this team, it doesn't matter. Just insert Zach Parise, Scrubby Johnson, Crappy McGillicuddy. Put them all in there. It doesn't matter. It's going to be the same result.
I don't think they're afraid of acquiring high-end talent. I just don't think they've been able to do it, right? They went and made the biggest offer out of anyone to Panarin.
Yeah.
He just didn't take it, right? They tried to retain Tavares. He was already out the door, right? Were they trying to take a swing at Erik Karlsson? Maybe, but thank God they didn't get him, right? Because he kind of sank the Sharks, but every Islander fan was screaming to get Erik Karlsson. I would say I'm sorry, not you.
Not
right?
us.
The only player that really comes to mind that I look back and say, damn, I wish Lou would have gotten this guy, right? And it's not Mark Stone, because Mark Stone wasn't going to sign here. He had agreed to a sign and trade with Vegas the day of. He didn't want to come here. But Ryan O'Reilly, if we could have figured out a way to get Ryan O'Reilly after Tavares left, I think we could have had a Stanley Cup already.
I don't know, but he would have made us better. And he
Oh,
would fit in.
yeah.
He would absolutely fit in with what,
Perfectly.
with what Barry does for certain.
Yeah. Jerry B saying, yeah, guys, muffed up, not going live last week and change. I had to settle for a subpar Islanders reviewing from other people, and it sucked. We're sorry, Jerry B, but we're back.
That's right, Jerry. Let me tell you something. I told TJ, that's on TJ once again. I said, we got to do a podcast. The people want a podcast. TJ, selfish as always, never thinking about the people, only thinking about himself.
You were getting your couch repaired, and Coach Tommy B also saying Staple is pissed. I have access to Lou's garbage pail. That is something to be jealous of. Scuba Steve said, do you think that Chara is going to come and end his career where it started? Maybe Hounders compare him up with Dobson.
No.
The question is not do you think or do you want? It's do you think, Grumpy. Now, do you think that's what's going to happen?
No.
Okay.
No. I'll tell you what, if they sign Chara back, all is lost. That's all I have to say.
How many more?
He does fit the MO, though. Guy in his mid-40s, can't play. Perfect for this team.
The funny thing about that is you say that, but he's legitimately the only guy in his mid-40s. Right? You have fun with saying the players are in there, but Chara legit.
He's 44. He's 44. I remember watching him play when he was a rookie. When they first came down to North Carolina, and it was the Hurricanes' first game. It was Greensboro Coliseum exhibition game. I actually talked with Mike Milbury. He was a little bit pissy, but he talked to me anyway. But that was when they had the Redwood defense that they were looking at. And Char looked pretty good. So what do? We trade him. Yeah.
Great move by the almighty Mike Milbury. Wouldn't that be a great guest to get on one time, Mike Milbury?
He'd be perfect for this podcast.
Mike Milbury has never said anything, that is uncouth in any capacity, Grumpy. So I don't know. I think he would be kind of a boring guest.
I think me and him would it'd be us two against you. That much I could.
I don't know. I think the fans would just be. I'd tell them. I said, "Yeah, don't look at the comment section. We're gonna have to make sure." I don't want to screw.
Milbury thinks that the Seattle Space Needle is in Toronto. That's all I'll say.
That Jay Bartro says, "Do not doubt what Phil says. He's in touch with the hockey gods. Just trust him." Instead of in Barry we trust, it's in Phil we trust.
Oh my gosh, Phil's got a fan.
No, Phil's got a lot of fans, Grumpy. I know you don't have any social media presence.
Here's the thing. I don't know if you're right. I have no social media presence. I don't know, but I'm saying that Phil has at least one fan.
Phil's got more than one fan.
I'm sure he does. I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm just saying he definitely has a fan because that gentleman was certainly pro Phil.
Well, I mean, listen. I think people found me when I put out the Pellick tweet with what I thought his contract was going to be, and I was off by about $100,000 or something like that. So that's my claim to fame this offseason.
Phil's a genius.
Well, no, I thought your claim to fame was when, oh man, I'm going to forget who it was. He gave you, and I think, I can't remember who else it was.
David Tuchman. It was, Jeff Capellini.
Yeah, Jeff Campolini. Yeah, he said these are two people you got to follow, but they might be a little bit feisty. I can't remember the exact verbiage he used, but they might be a little feisty with people you got to follow. I thought that was the big one this offseason.
TJ, I have a question for you. How does it feel to be shut down by Phil when talking about Otto Koivula?
I wasn't shut down on Otto Koivula again, right? I mean, the guy's putting up about 0.8, 0.6 points a game in the AHL. Brett Thompson is the issue. It's not the player.
Okay, nobody cares for you to rehash that horrible point you made, that horrible take. It just reminds me of Ben Affleck in Good Will Hunting after Matt Damon shows his intelligence to the guy in the bar, and he goes, "What do you think of me now? Yeah, tough guy." That's right.
Is that what you feel like? And that's what you feel like? I'm the guy, and he's like, "How do you like them apples?" Boom. Phil goes ahead.
That was after that. That's what Matt Damon did to the guy in the bar.
I try to get a movie reference right. At least I tried. I'm happy I knew the reference, Grump, or knew I.
That's why you leave me to the movie references, okay? Because there you go, you butchered another one. Good job.
And then Scuba Steve also saying Salo has been playing tons of minutes over there in La Liga as well as the Swedish Hockey League.
Has he been playing in La Liga? They just started their season a couple of weeks ago.
No.
He played last year. He had been playing. So should have been past tense, but yeah, he played a lot. Of minutes
he's played a lot of minutes. He's always put up good points. I think that's a guy who's going to need time to adjust to a smaller ice surface. I mean, he skates well, but you'd like to think he's going to get a little bit of time in the A first.
Yeah, I agree.
Tommy B said, TJ, maybe you and Grumpy Old Man can meet us in Nashville for the October 30th Islanders game.
I'm free. I can probably make that, Tommy. Send me a ticket.
You want your airfare paid for too, Grumpy?
No, I'll drive.
Oh, gotcha. Moving right along there. Oh, Michael T said, what about trading Aatu Ratu and Bailey for Tarasenko?
No.
No way.
See, Michael does this type of thing, okay? I think he's deliberately trolling because, I mean, there's no way they're trading Aatu Ratu. Now, Bailey, I'm all for that. And here's the thing. If you want to throw Kiefer Bellows in there, I'm fine with that too because they're never going to give him a shot here. So I don't have a problem with that. To me, let's roll the dice and try. The window for this team to win a Stanley Cup is what? 2 years, maybe? Maybe 2 years? Maybe. Roll the dice with a Tarasenko. Do it.
You know what the interesting thing about Lewis since he's been here? He has not traded any prospects. That's what I find interesting. He's always used draft capital. I can't think of one trade he's made where it's involved like an actual prospect.
You could say that he should have traded some of those prospects, though.
Well, that's always been the item, right? If you're not going to play him, you feel like they've got no chance. And here's the thing, right? If you don't think Otto Koivu has got a chance, would have been optimal to trade him beforehand. I mean, the same
what?
thing.
No, I don't think anyone wants Otto Koivu.
Oh, I think here's the thing. I think somebody
we're going to waive him, and he's not going to get claimed. I mean, he's really not a commodity.
Well, yeah. How many people get claimed at the beginning of the year when you waive them? This is like what is it? And again, like you could say, hey, those are always the lower tier players, but very, very rarely did anybody get claimed. I mean, that's the same item we saw. And again, I haven't really done the research on that, but I remember last year, or I think it was 2 years ago, when they waived Josh Ho-Sang, people were like, oh, well, people never get claimed. It's okay that they waived Josh Ho-Sang. They were trying to quiet the masses or calm the masses. I think it was 2 years ago when he was waived, and people were up in arms.
Listen, if a player is worthwhile to be picked up, the player is going to be picked up. Goalies get picked up off waivers all the time during the big waiving frenzy right before the season starts. D-men more often than forwards, but if there's a good forward out there, it happens.
A guy that's been down in there in the A, I feel like, again, trade value wise, I'm not saying he's got unbelievable trade value. I'm just saying you have to feel like he's got something. Same thing with Sebastian. I'm not saying he's going to yield just some crazy return, but you have to feel like he's got some sort of value. A young guy like that, I'm talking about Aho now, 3-time AHL All-Star. You feel like he's got some sort of value. I hate seeing young players like that rot on the vine. If you're not going to use them, that's fine. Just make sure you move them. I've always thought that. Josh, I hope Josh Ho-Sang gets his chance and he starts killing it up there in Toronto on that PTO. I'll be interested. I'll be watching a little bit of that Toronto preseason as well.
Listen, the thing is, these other teams need to have the same amount of interest that we perceive them to have in these players, right? If there was a market, if there were teams that were significantly interested in Sebastian Aho, don't you think someone would have called Lou and offered something?
Do you think Lou would have traded? I mean, you just said he's not trading any prospects. Do you think Lou?
I'm just pointing it out that I find it interesting that since he's been here, he hasn't traded any prospects. But I think if someone would have a desire to acquire a player like Sebastian Aho, I think he'd certainly take a listen. The question is, I mean, every single NHL team, I mean, we just know the Islanders farm system because we follow the organization, but you go around the league, right? Every team has their core of guys who their fans think very highly of. And most of these guys, reality of it is, if you're not a first-round pick, you've got like less than a 5% chance of making the NHL as a full-time player or something like that. So, you've got a bunch of these tweener guys, and I just don't see Otto Koivula or Sebastian Aho really at any point in the past 2-3 years as having significant amount of trade value to get something done.
I'm saying you add him as an ancillary piece. They've got value. I've always believed some players have value. That's why you see it. But, I do find it interesting. Hey, you bring up they don't trade any prospects. There is some sort of value. If someone came, I'm not saying a guy everybody's beating down the door to say, hey, we got to go ahead and see what's going on with Sebastian. Hey, what do you plan on doing with Otto Koivula? I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you're in a situation where it's like, hey, we're quibbling over, can you retain $500,000 on this? Can you do this? Can you do that? Let me go ahead and throw in a piece, an ancillary or tertiary piece of an Otto Koivula or a Sebastian Aho that can maybe tilt the needle a little bit in the right direction where you feel like you're not getting gypped. So, we can actually meet on this. I feel like those are the type of items where you can move a young prospect. I'm not saying it's like, hey, we're trading Otto Koivula or Sebastian Aho for a third-round pick. No.
I like how Phil never wastes an opportunity to throw Otto Koivula under the non-prospect bus.
I tell you, he's going to further entrench me. I'm like, man, Otto Koivula, Phil's got to be wrong. I got to Otto. Come on.
I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to see Bello succeed. I just don't think he will. He's slow. He doesn't play well away from the puck. He has, unless the puck's hitting him square in the chest and going into the net, or, Five Devils just put their sticks down and allow him to waltz in, or he gets a wide open feed from Barzal where no one's covering him. I mean, he's never really showed me anything that's that impressive, right? And it's not like Wahlstrom came in and was just scoring buckets of goals and that's why he stayed in the lineup, right? Wahlstrom had that like random thing that went off of someone's, a shin pad or something of the Capital. And the next 10, 11 games, I don't even think he found the stat sheet, but he was doing other things right that Barry liked, right? I think if Bellows was showing competency and was, creating scoring chances and, just when he was out with I remember Nelson and Bailey, he just, that's where offense went to die. He couldn't generate anything. The guy's soft on his skates.
You realize they did nothing when Beauvillier wasn't performing at the beginning of the year because they can't. They're not capable. When you bring up Nelson and Bailey and say if a player doesn't perform when he was with those two, well, that's a result of those two guys not being good enough. That's what
I do remember the second line was very stagnant at the beginning of the year when Beauvillier wasn't sparked. He got injured, he came back, kind of picked up pace a little bit. The streaky guy he is by nature. And we saw the second line increase. Remember, people were ready to throw the second line off the Empire State Building at the beginning of the year. They're performing that poorly.
Yeah, I mean, he got injured in like the beginning of game number 5, right? So he played 4 games, got injured in the first period, missed 9 games, came back, right? Was he 100% when he came back? Probably not, because NHL players don't come back when they're 100%. We know that. And he certainly did take a long time to get going. And you're right, Nelson and Bailey were not the same playing with Kiefer Bellows and Leo Komarov as they were with Anthony Beauvillier. And that's not really surprising because neither of those guys are top 6 NHL players.
Not yet, that's for certain, and some never will be. Moving right along there, Scott L says, Shampoo Lou can't even rinse and repeat. He's got no hair. Crumb.
Well, that's why I sent him a washcloth for a comb for Christmas.
Here's a weird question. If you don't have any hair on your head, do you just use body wash like soap on the entire thing, or you still put shampoo on where your hair follicles should be?
Maybe we should ask you, TJ, what do you do?
I don't know. This is a question maybe I'm trying to find out for down the road, grumpy old man, is what I'm looking for.
I don't know. Maybe you should ask Tommy, your pal Tommy Baffy.
I'll have to ask the fellow individuals. Michael O'Donnell saying, excellent as always, gents. Thanks for making the offseason tolerable.
Our pleasure, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Michael T also saying the PPP line should be called the pod line since there's 3 P's in a pod.
I think they should call him the Wizard line.
Here's the other thing, though. Palmieri's never going to be on the third line. If we don't acquire Tarasenko, and even if we do acquire Tarasenko, he still won't be on the third line. So
I would like if they sign Palmieri back and Tarasenko is traded.
Well, Palmieri. Let's just assume like this: Palmieri signed back.
Why not put Palmieri on the second line?
Why not in a situation where they get Tarasenko?
Yeah,
that's what TJ just said.
Well, yeah, no, I'm saying that the triple.
What TJ's saying is there won't be a PPP line because in the event that they get Tarasenko, they're going to put Palmieri with Bailey, with Nelson and Beauvillier. That's what. I'm assuming that's what you're getting at.
I never listen to what TJ says because it's mostly nonsensical. So yeah, but I'm fine with that. I want Bailey on the third line. I want Bailey gone. In essence, that's what I want.
Michael D saying, finally a voice of reason. Phil Fax making Grumpy silent there on the couch.
Actually, the reason why I was silent on the couch is because my little grand dog just showed up.
Now these again, Grumpy. These are comments from earlier on in the show. So this is
okay.
Anyway, out of the beginning 13-game road trip what amount of wins, overtime losses from those games would be considered good? Oh, man, we're
7 wins.
if you're thinking, hey,
7
we
wins.
come out a little on top, we win more than we lose, you'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
be.
That's particularly with this team. Remember, we're an older team. It's going to be condensed schedule, full 82 games, and I think a lot of people are forgetting that as one of the older teams in the league, it's going to be tough. Depth is going to be an issue. Playing 13 games on the road to start the season. 19 games where it's like 3 games in 4 days. I mean, that's going to take a lot out of the team. And in the last 2 seasons, a lot of people don't really, at least this has been my theory, Phil. Maybe you could check your facts. But I think that the fact that the last couple of years when we played only, 52 games and then 56 or whatever it was, or 60, we weren't going to make the playoffs the COVID year. I firmly believe we were not going to make the playoffs. And last year, I think we benefited from the shortened schedule with an older roster, particularly with the style that we play.
I would say in the COVID year, the only thing that could have kept us in the playoffs was the fact that Columbus was sinking just as fast as we were. And at some point, you have to come out of an 11-game, losing 11 out of 13. So who knows? Last year, I think they would have made the playoffs, though. I mean, they clinched with 6 games remaining, and the Rangers started to come apart at the seams also. So I think, if you would have added on another 26 games and the Islanders would have taken those last 6 games seriously, I mean, they cleared by, I think, 10 or 11 points. I think they would have cleared quite comfortably last year.
No, I think we would have made last year. We would have made playoffs. But
2 years ago, pretty dicey. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we were totally.
Yeah, I mean,
we were
injury depleted. You're missing your top D man. Cizikas was apparently more important to that team than he actually should have been. But for some reason, once he went down to injury, along with Clutterbuck, for some reason, the bottom 6 stopped functioning. Pajot just wasn't playing well at all in those first 7 games. I know he had a couple of goals in the first 2 games, but he looked horrible when they first acquired him.
Right, he was. I'm going to ask you a question, Phil. The Islanders' identity line. If you had an identity line, what would you like it to be? Your first line or your fourth line? Would that for a team's identity? What would you like?
I mean, ideally, you want it to be a scoring line. I agree. You want your identity to be scoring.
That was a layup question for you there, Phil. I just wanted to make sure.
He just wanted you to say Grumpy just wants to promote his little his spin on things.
I just wanted to make sure Phil wasn't going off the reservation by saying that he's happy with the fourth line being the identity line.
Listen, I mean, I kind of saved the Islanders season, a couple of times. I called out Cizikas for his 47 playoff game goal drought and said they shouldn't sign him back. And then lo and behold, he scores the OT winner within 24 hours. And I, called out Nelson for being terrible. And then all of a sudden he scores two winning, game-winning goals in game 6s. So, I had been knocking on Cizikas quite a bit. I understand why they're bringing him back, right? They feel that without him, that fourth line is completely useless. But, unless it's a reasonable number, I guess $2.5 million or less, if you're talking about giving him 6 years, is Clutterbuck even going to be in the NHL after next year?
No,
I don't know. If I were his wife, I wouldn't want him to. I mean, he's had back surgery. The guy's got like 80% hand function in his right or left hand, whichever one it was. I mean, he's played a tough 14 years in the NHL or whatever it's been. I mean, I can't imagine he comes back after this season.
No, I agree with you there. I agree. I just like how Phil's kind of taking credit for Casey Cizikas scoring that goal subtly and for Brock Nelson performing better than he had. I like it. Good job, Phil.
It's just like when you go ahead and go on your rant about anytime you make a rant about how terrible, miserable Josh Bailey is. It's like magically, it's like they clip a certain portion. They say, "Hey, Josh, we got a little 10-second clip we want you to listen to go ahead and motivate you for today's game." And they happen to perform better. They just show Phil some of the tweets. They show the Islanders, Brock Nelson, Casey Cizikas a tweet or two, and they're like, "Oh shit, man."
It only works when they're negative, though, right? In Game 6 versus Tampa last year in the bubble year, Game 6 going into the intermission, I tweeted out, "This game is going to end on a Brock Nelson shorthanded goal." I tweeted it, and then 30 seconds later, Tyler Johnson just gives him the puck. He skates in and has the worst shorthanded breakaway attempt with a half a sheet of ice I've ever seen. So maybe if I would have said this game is going to end on a Tampa power play goal, maybe he would have scored it.
That's how you earn a name like Croc Nelson.
Brian P said, rumor has it the nickname for the third line is the TJ line.
Ooh, nice shot, Brian.
Brett W saying, couldn't Kiefer Bellows score the same 20 goals as the geezer Parise if they gave him a shot?
No.
He probably scored 25.
You don't think he would be able to score 20 goals? I honestly believe you can plug and play anybody that has any sort of offensive acumen on that third line, and they'll be able to put up 20 goals. Maybe it's because I'm really, I believe highly in John Gabriel Pajot and Oliver Wahlstrom, but I believe just like cleaning up, you'll be able to put 20 goals in the net on that third line.
I think the issue with Kiefer Bellows is he's a top 6 player. He's not a bottom. And you got to remember, our second line is really not a second line. You got those 2 ham and egger hacks who were supported by Anthony Beauvillier. And I'd much rather have J.G. Pajot on the second line, honestly. But Kiefer Bellows, I don't know. He plays with Matt Barzal. He's able to score goals. I mean, is that what it's about?
It seems like that's the only time he's had success last year, right? They played him, 10 games he plays in the middle 6, and it's all goose eggs, right? 10 games in the middle 6, 4 games on the top line, and he had 3 goals.
And he's got good chemistry with Matt Barzal, it seems like. I don't know. It seems like a match made in heaven to me. Why would we do that? Why would we want success? You know what I think? They were afraid. Yeah, this kid's not in our plans. If he starts scoring goals, every game he scores a goal, they play him next game. One game he doesn't score a goal, banishment. Back to Siberia.
It was 2 games he didn't score goals. Washington and then Philadelphia. And then I think it was 3 games in a row versus Philadelphia. The second one they brought in Komarov. They won like 6-1.
I thought that he played 3 games on the stint. 2 goals, 1 goal, 0 goals. The only reason I know is because
if I remember correctly, it was Devils, Washington, Flyers, and then he came out.
I'm gonna have to look it up, but we'll get to some of your comments. Jerry B saying, "Damn, Phil Fax always outsmarts and outclasses you guys. He should just make his own podcast."
No, stop it.
Jerry well, B. You're right there. No, Phil's right. No, can't do it.
Michael Lennon saying, "Welcome back, guys. Thanks, Michael."
New picture for Michael, man. He's looking mean. I don't know. He's looking mean.
He always changes his picture.
He does.
Alexander saying, "What if Parise gets hurt and Bellows comes in and lights it up? What's going to happen when Parise's healthy?"
Bellows gets traded or released. He certainly will never see the ice. The only ice he's going to see is what's in his drink after the game. That's it.
You don't think it could be a Devon Toews situation where Hickey gets hurt, Toews comes in, lights it up, and stays in the lineup?
No freaking way.
Well, here's my question. Why did it have to be always in a situation like that? Because, we could say, right, Devon Toews, when he walked in, he was more than a better player than Thomas Hickey was. First game, rookie and all. So, how many of those, it always makes me wonder, how many of those additional pieces do we have players who are just, and again, like I know Devon Toews, they wanted him to get reacclimated after coming off the shoulder surgery. I know it's a little bit of a different situation, but he was the best defenseman out of camp. And again, sent back down out of the A because that's already what they deemed the plan to be. And it wasn't until somebody got hurt. Hey, here's my question. If Thomas Hickey doesn't get hurt, do you think they still tote the company line? Because we were about a 500 team before Thomas Hickey got hurt. Thomas Hickey gets hurt. Devon Toews gets inserted in the lineup. You see our winning percentage jump drastically. Now, if Thomas Hickey doesn't get hurt, do you think they still would have inserted Devon Toews in that lineup? Or they say, hey, we're going to stick with the same exact tried and true crew we've got out there, and it's going to produce results?
Go ahead, Phil. Everyone knows my answer.
I would say absolutely impossible to know, but if they were doing well, then no. If they were playing well and they were in a playoff position, which they weren't at the time, I think they were like 17, 14-3 or something like that. They were like a few games over 500, but if they were in the hunt, the answer probably would have been no. If they would have fallen out of it, then probably yes.
Want to give Phil credit. He was right. It was 4 games, not 3 games. So he had 2 goals first game, 1 goal, talking about Kiefer Bellows, 1 goal second game, and then 0 goals on the third and the fourth game before he found the evidential bench. So, Phil, want to give you credit on that one. I could not remember. I'm glad we went ahead and got that. Grump's got that little
before you start trumpeting Phil as the greatest thing since sliced bread, everyone wants to know why Phil doesn't have a podcast because he couldn't even answer that previous question. The answer is no. You cannot ride the fence. You have to have an opinion, Phil.
No.
So the answer is absolutely not. They would have rode the Thomas Hickey train into the ground. He never would have gotten a shot.
I believe that.
The proof. Okay, here's the proof. Oliver Wahlstrom gets injured in the playoffs. He's healthy. and they never put him back in the lineup. They score 11 goals against Tampa, a goalie, an actual goalie. They score 11 goals, and he never snips the ice after that. We're going to ride the old guys till the wheels fall off. Travis Zajac, Leo Komarov, name any cast of clowns that we roll out there every night in the mid-30s, upper 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Roll him out there. Young guy, sorry. Your time will be in 3 or 4 years. That's when we're ready for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone loves to Monday morning quarterback the 7-game series where they lost by a 1-0 margin. But listen, that game 7 is what separates you from being a genius to an idiot, right? It's a very thin line over there. To me, like I said earlier, Pageau was the least effective player, in my opinion, of anyone in the forward group in that series. After game 2, when he pulled up and tweaked it, and I know in the U.S. they didn't show it, but in Canada on Sportsnet, they showed it right away when he went to the locker room. He pulled something in his groinal area or groin area.
His groinal area?
I like groinal.
That's the medical term. And he just wasn't the same player for the rest of the series. If you were to bring anyone out for Wahlstrom, you move Zajac to the middle and then have a line of Zajac, Palmieri, Wahlstrom, and hopefully you get something there. But getting to a game 7 scenario, there was just never a situation where he was going to come back in with that series being as close as it was in terms of games. And ultimately, would it have made a difference? Who the heck knows?
See, for me, I wasn't Monday morning quarterbacking. I was game day quarter. I'm like, why is he not in the lineup? Why are we continuing to roll out the Travis Zajacs, the Josh Bailey, who was absolutely invisible in that Tampa Bay series? He was a liability out there. And maybe he should have picked up that man coming off the bench. I don't know, Josh. Maybe give it a shot. But no. Does he get called out? Nope. Not one of their little favorites.
In the 5 games that Wahlstrom played in the playoffs, would you say the Islanders were just significantly better in those 5 games than they were versus Tampa?
This sounds like a trap, Phil. I'm just
asking your opinion in those 5 games, right?
My opinion is,
do you think that they were much better in those 5 games?
Here's my opinion. We needed goal scorers against Tampa, and we wouldn't play one guy who's a goal scorer, who led our team. I think he led our team in power play goals, did he not, last year?
That or he was tied with Anders Lee. Whatever it was, besides Anders Lee, I know he was the second.
No, Lee got injured, which took him out of it. The only one I'm thinking, Nelson. I think Nelson's first 6 goals or 6 out of his first 7 goals were all in the power play. I would think Nelson led us in power play goals.
I think Wahlstrom had 9 goals on the power play.
No.
He had 3.
Wahlstrom had 10 power play points. He had
11 goals, scrum.
11 goals, 10 assists, or 12 goals, 9 assists, and something like that. 21 points, of which 10 points were on the power play. But I think he had maybe 4 or 5 power play goals.
So Brock Nelson, 7 power play goals, led the team. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, 2nd power play goals, 5, and then Oliver Wahlstrom, 4 power play goals.
That's what I thought.
Okay. I still want the guy who can shoot the puck against Tampa. When you can't score a goal, I don't care how many 4th-liner types you want to roll out there. Just keep the game close and lose at the end because Tampa could just turn it on and they have way more talent. You needed to have somebody who could put the puck in the net. And we didn't have that in that series. Matt Barzal was the offense in that series. And Tampa just said, you know what? We're going to stop. We'll do everything we can to stop Matt Barzal. Let one of the Jags take it over. And we just couldn't do it. We were never beating Tampa, ever. Never freaking ever were we beating Tampa last year. No shot. If we would have scored a goal, tied up, they just sort of said 30 seconds later, we'll put one in the net. They scored that goal and they just coasted the rest of the game. Coasted.
I agree that they maybe had changed their style after they scored the first goal. Said, all right, Islanders, we're just going to go ahead and play more of a layback style. Because I would say it was kind of, it was a nothing fest. It was a nothing burger there for the rest of the game. It wasn't necessarily high octane either which way. So, it was definitely playoff style hockey. You might say, hey, we were 1 goal away in game 7. That is true. Outscored, though, 21-11 over that series. And last year, the year before that, 19-11. team that just had more offensive power. And again, I'll agree with Grump. We're a team that struggled to score goals against Tampa last year. We struggled to score goals against Tampa this year. I'm not a big believer in the concept of we want to go ahead and keep things closer and sacrifice the ability to score goals, where I could put a guy on there who might be able to, just light, be able to get hot, lay a little bit of fire on his ass, and might be able to go ahead and score some goals and help contribute in that way.
And just to piggyback on that, TJ, real quick, Phil, just because the other teams didn't have a guy from the Paralympics in the net, that's not to say that we wouldn't have beat them either. They had a real goalie in there.
I want Phil to get a chance to respond. I know we're kind of going on a long bit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't care about the aggregate in a 7-game series when you have one clear outlier game that's 8-0, right? So the aggregate of 21-11, which is heavily skewed by them getting more than a third of their goals in one particular game out of 7, doesn't really bother me. It's a tough coaching decision. To me, Pajot should have sat. I said at the time, the guy just looked like he had no wheels and no gas left in the tank. Barry thought otherwise, got it to game 7, and the critical difference was they were able to roll 4 lines effectively, and we just weren't.
Brian P. said, "Hey, Phil, I got facts too. What do you think about a first line of Beauvillier, Brock Nelson, and Paul Mary? First line of Lee, Barzal, and Wallstrom. A second line of Beauvillier, Brock Nelson, Paul Mary. A third line of Bellows, Pajot, Bailey, and a fourth line of Parise, Casey, and Clutterbuck."
I mean, I am all for putting Wallstrom on the top line. I'd go for it. I just think it's going to be Paul Mary for the reasons we discussed earlier, right? The veteran's going to get the nod, right? Paul Mary's been a top line player for, pretty much the better part of the last 6-7 years. I think that's who they're going to start with. So would I like these lines? I mean, that fourth line would just be odd to me, having Parise play the fourth line. That's just not really a game he'll play. I don't see why you would put Parise on a checking line.
Probably because he sucks and can't do anything else. But he can't check either. So,
D-Cut saying, shout out to Isles Misery.
I gave you a shout out earlier. I was very complimentary of the Islanders Misery guys as opposed to some other websites. But always get support from Islanders Misery.
Jerry B said, "Bro, let Tampa win the 2 bogus COVID cups. We'll get the real one this year."
Yeah, not happening. I predict we don't even get out of our division this year. Carolina, if we play Carolina, they're going to beat us. They play the style that gives us the most trouble. Young team, really good skating, aggressive forecheck. That gives us
but look at their blue line now, though. I mean,
I don't agree with what they did in the offseason.
They've had a miserable offseason, in my opinion. Right?
Well, you think they have a miserable offseason every year, but they somehow managed to make the team better. I didn't think they had a great offseason last year. I mean, I don't know how they won their division last year. They're a young team on the come, though, without a doubt.
No, they won their division last year because Tampa didn't have Kucherov during the regular season. That's how they won their division. A healthy Kucherov
too.
Florida
was much.
Yeah, Florida was good too. But I mean, if you have a healthy Kucherov during the regular season, it would have required some subtractions from the middle of the lineup. But Tampa would have they would have won the President's Trophy. I don't think there's any dispute to that, right? You had Kucherov just coming fresh off the bench, and all of a sudden he led the entire playoffs in scoring. Right? He's that good of a talent where he would have made that big of a difference during the regular season. Carolina getting rid of both of their goaltenders and bringing in Frederick Anderson, who in my opinion is completely washed. And Antti Ranta, I like Ranta, but Dougie Hamilton is a huge, huge loss to that blue line. And I just think Matt Barzal is going to relish the opportunity to play against Tony DeAngelo 4 times a year and put the puck in between his skates multiple times before shooting over Freddie's left shoulder.
Oh my gosh!
I'll tell you one thing. He's always made Tony DeAngelo look a little foolish, though. Grump, you can't deny that.
I'm just saying that I know what Phil dreams about when he goes to sleep at night. I mean, that was very detailed.
And Michael T saying, "Grumpy old Carmine Falcone."
Yes, that's right, Michael.
Chuck on Sports said, "Looking good, Phil."
He does look sharp. I gotta admit it.
Absolutely. And then Michael M saying, "Ask Phil why he's so high on Parise."
Because he's smoking crack.
No, I think he kind of already gave us our answer on that.
Yeah, he did.
I'll give it to you. I mean, listen, career low shooting percentage coming off of years of 28 and 25 goals. 25 goals in the previous 2 seasons before this one on the power play, and this strip involves power play time, right? So if he even gets back to his career average shooting percentage and is given power play time on the second unit, and with Wahlstrom or Palmieri as the trigger man there and being able to bury deflections and rebounds, look at the goals that he scored in the playoffs, right? 4 games, he scored 2 goals. If you look back at those goals, one is where he's net front and just puts it through his own legs and over the shoulder of the goaltender. And the other one was a stuffing attempt. That's how he scores a lot of his goals. He's kind of got that Anders Lee element, only in a much tinier package. But I think the prospect of having a guy who could score 15 to 20 goals when in that position we've been rolling out Tanner Fritz, Michael Dalcole, Ross Johnston, and a whole bunch of, circus clowns for the last 3 years. I think there's, potential upside there that we have previously not been able to tap into.
William C. saying, the longer this goes on without news from Lou, the more nervous I'm getting. I really just see us bringing back the same roster as last year at this point.
Minus Nicoletti. That's going to be your offseason. I predicted it. And I hope I'm wrong. I still hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
I don't know. When do you start hitting the worry button, if at all, Phil?
I'm not worried.
When Tarasenko gets traded to Carolina.
When Tarasenko
gets traded to Carolina, that's when you hit the panic button.
Yeah.
I mean, until there's some sort of significant movement, right? Has there been any move that you've looked at, right? I mean, I highlighted Buchnevich before, which was a great trade for St. Louis that we, for obvious reasons, could not make. But other than that type of player being moved, has there been anything that you say, oh, damn it, we really missed out on that? Hasn't been that way this offseason, right? In previous offseasons, it's been like, man, I wish we could have gotten Panarin, right? You had a whole contingent of people at the trade deadline who were like, damn it, we should have traded for Taylor Hall instead of Palmieri and Zajac, right? There's always the second guessing. There hasn't been any move that's been made where you're like, well, why wasn't Lou involved in that, right? People wanted them to sign Suter for 4 years. I know Grumpy didn't. I think Suter 4x4 would have been a little bit crazy. Might have helped you this year, but I don't know.
Yeah. Stop pissing away money on guys in their mid-30s. Stop doing it. Stop trading away first-round draft picks. Stop doing it. Get rid of more of the deadwood, like the Josh Baileys. Why would and I love the idea, honestly, Phil, of Bailey for Tarasenko. Why would St. Louis want Josh Bailey?
Yeah, so St. Louis they view themselves as being in a window of contention. Right. So if you're going to trade away Tarasenko, who's a player who could produce, love him or hate him, Josh Bailey for the past 4 or 5 seasons has scored at a 50-point pace plus for each of the last, that given period of time. He's been very good in the playoffs. He has no trade protection. He costs less in terms of real dollars and salary cap. So when you add all those things up, it just might make sense, right? Like, I don't know, why would Columbus want Jake Voracek instead of Cam Atkinson? I haven't really dove deep into it, but I mean, on the surface, it doesn't seem like it really makes sense. But teams have interesting considerations sometimes.
I think both of those players are better than Josh Bailey, though. I just don't think Josh Bailey's that good.
I don't.
They are, but you have to examine what the market is for a player like Tarasenko, right? How many teams could take that cap hit on full rate? Not many. That limits it. He's got a full no movement clause. Right. So if he sucks, or full no trade, not no move, they're different. And he's owed a heck of a lot of cash.
I think too, you're having a situation where he doesn't want to be back. You don't want guys rowing in the wrong direction. You want everybody moving in a cohesive unit in the right direction. Hey, if you're upset, unhappy, you don't want that leaking over and infecting possibly other individuals. I mean, he's not going to be speaking all glowingly like, high school sweethearts about any time, something is done. I'm sure, I'm not saying he's a cancer in the locker room. I'm just saying when he gets a chance, I'm sure he's not always going to be happy, rah-rah, because he's upset with the organization. He doesn't want to be there. No reason to keep somebody who doesn't want to be there. That's always been my opinion.
I just don't understand the appeal for St. Louis for Josh Bailey.
I mean, why would the Rangers trade Buchnevich, who was their second to best forward last year and a point per game player, pretty much, for Sammy Bly?
Because they're stupid. Because Chris Drury is your GM. That's why. I just don't know why Armstrong would do that. They're always dumb teams in the league. St. Louis doesn't strike me as being one of them, though. But you never know. I'd love that deal. I'd love it. I'd be ecstatic.
I lost some comments, Grump. I'm sure you're going to be very happy about that.
Probably the ones that say, Grumpy, you're the best. Phil sucks. TJ's useless. Those are the ones you lose. Let's see what's
all those ones are gone. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Michael T saying, animated Grumpy makes me laugh. Makes me chuckle, too.
Yeah, me too.
Robert G said, Grumpster on negative scale is 10 out of 10 tonight.
I don't even think I've been negative at all, honestly. See, people take realism as negativity.
Michael T also saying, TJ, why haven't you fixed that logo on your wall? It's not like I could send this back. I've had it for a long time. I didn't even notice it was upset. I'm not a craftsman or what do they call it? A carpenter. I'm not going to be able to recarve that out of wood to where it looks correct. So it's going to be like that forever. Sorry. Maybe I'll just go ahead and paste something over it or blur that little section out. Jerry B said, Phil, are you in a house or office or a warehouse? It's an intense echo picking up. The wall behind you is huge. Jerry B trying to give you a little bit of a hard time. He's also saying, my question to Phil is, you come off as so smart, classy, mature, etc. Why is your name spelled Phil's Facts with a Z? I feel like misspelling things on purpose would be beneath you.
I can answer those questions for Phil, then I'll give him a shot. The first thing is because he's in witness protection program. That's why it's just a blank wall like that. And he spells it with a Z because he thinks he's a Z rapper. That's why. He doesn't look it, but when he puts on the cap and he gets to, Kronkin or whatever the heck they do, he's ready to go.
Getting the Kronkin.
It's Phil's with a Z because my friend made it up, and I just went with it. And I am in my basement, and the reason why there's such large echoes because I've got 12-foot ceilings down here, so the room just kind of echoes.
And that's why Phil doesn't have his own podcast. He just should have went with my explanation and rode with it. That's what he should have done.
And then Jeremy said, TJ, you say that you like Otto Corvula's body. You like the looks of him. Yeah, I do. I like his body. I like his size. I'm not lying about it. He's got a good size. He's got a good body and a good frame.
I think what Jerry is saying that you like the cut of his jib. That's what I think he's trying to
insinuate what you want. Oh, goodness gracious. Jeremy said, question for you right now, Grump. Who's in hotter water, Evander Kane or Andrew Cuomo?
Evander Kane. I think if Cuomo, I'm surprised he's even resigning. I think if he just kept his mouth shut, it would go away after a while. Evander Kane's having new things come at him every week.
So is it looking like those claims that his wife made or his going to be estranged wife, they might be holding some water? Is that what you're gathering?
Well, that's not the new news. I mean, he's talking about the latest thing with the abortion, right?
Yes. Where
did you see that, TJ?
I'm not. I haven't. I must have been tuned out. I had not.
The lady is saying that he promised to give her money for an abortion. What was the dollar amount? It seemed like it was
$2 million. $2 million.
That's a lot of money for an abortion. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, if you do a cost benefit analysis there, it probably makes sense because child support for 18 years for a guy making Evander Kane's salary would probably be in excess of $2 million. So
why didn't he just whack the chick? That's what I'm saying.
At this point, he's already betting on games, perhaps allegations. Who knows what he's involved with? Maybe the mob. Who knows, Grump?
This is going before a judge, though. This is going to go before a judge.
You wonder why he has cash flow problems, right? When you're making deals like that with some type of road skank, you just ask him for trouble. I'm sorry.
Eli saying, Jerry asking a hard-hitting question. For certain he is. He always does. Oh, goodness gracious. Michael T saying, F Tom Brady, just to make you happy, grumpy old man.
Jealous. It's all jealousy.
And then
the greatest player of all time. Come on.
Jerry B said, you guys should just make it 8:15.
Okay. No, don't say that, Jerry, because if you say 8:15, then it'll be 8:30, because that's just the way TJ rolls.
You give me an inch, I take a mile, right?
Yeah. Eddie Murphy had an even better line on that in Delirious, but it didn't age well in today's day and age. But it was still freaking hilarious.
Oh, goodness. And then Michael T said, all the Islanders need to do to make the playoffs with their style of play, they can win the cup if they make the playoffs because in Barry and Lou, it just works. With Barry and Lou, it just works.
All they proved in the last 2 years is that they can win their division. That's it. Because they got beat when they played a team from another division.
And then I'll let Grumpy read this here. Yo, TJ.
Yo, and TJ, for real. Let Grumpy read some comments. He has more pizzazz than you do, for real. That's how you read them.
Oh, goodness gracious. And then Michael T said, Grumpy old man sleeps with the big fishes. It's just sleeping with the fishes tonight, Grumpy old man.
Yeah, well, I always love a Godfather reference, always.
Absolutely. And then Tommy B saying Staple has no connection with the Islanders anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what the W is at the end of that statement. Maybe it's Tommy thinking he's a rapper, or maybe that's what he read, some typo in Lou's garbage can. I don't know.
Or the W is right next to the E on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Grumpy.
Fat fingers.
Misspelling. Tom White said, all reporters think up shit out of the blue just to have something to write about. Toronto is the worst.
Ooh, I'll defer to you on that, Phil. Is that true?
I mean, I would actually say Toronto's the best because Dubas gives out information like candy to these insiders.
Oh,
so I would say they're actually pretty good. They'll know about stuff ahead of time. With Islander fans, you need to find out from an Islanders press release that'll come probably midway through the opening night game.
There you go. Hey, Matt Barzell, he's back? Really?
Michael M said, I need to start my own Islanders news coverage. It would be absolutely hilarious if you cover all the stuff that goes on out there. The media, the Islanders media posts some absolute ludicrous thing. I know you. I'm not going to stir the pot. I'm not going to stir the pot on this one. I'll move along because I'm a guy who could be known to stir the pot.
What are you talking about?
I know.
You throw out these comments and then you just say, I'm not going to cover anything. People might actually think you have something interesting to say for a change.
Phil's Facts happens to have a viewpoint on one of the other fellow Hockey Podcast Network podcasts that happen to cover the Islanders. We're looking to be pretty vague. That he might agree with us on some points that he thinks that they cover, and you're just kind of like left scratching your head with some of these ideas they throw out there. The podcast that's going to have Damian Woody. Hey, congratulations. They're going to have Damian Woody on the podcast coming up too, Grom. The one you think, they ask some of the hard-hitting questions.
Yeah. Damian, what's your favorite color? Is it green or white?
Scott L said, new shirt for TJ to make, Bootlicking Weasels. Still waiting on the Grumpy's Groupies t-shirt. Make sometime this century.
Okay, I want to touch base on that. Here's my idea for a t-shirt. My idea. Okay. Yeah, I'm from the South. So my idea for a t-shirt would be Grumpies. They got a picture of me with women hanging off my legs. Beautiful women, by the way. And then Groupies on the bottom. So it'll be like life imitating art, so to speak, because that's the way my life is. Now, TJ has an idea where they have some type of a Grateful Dead van following, and
it was made up by the lovely Paige. And again, the first one I made, it wasn't great. I'm getting on Grumpy. I feel like I say this every damn time. We should have, for those who listen to the podcast format, you should notice a new logo that's coming out. You should notice when you're listening to this and tuning in on Thursday morning when everybody's listening to it. They can't wait for the Islanders Never Say That podcast. You should notice a new logo. We finally got an upgrade. We got rid of that, whatever the hell it was, and now we've got a legitimate logo that is actually Grumpy approved.
That's true. I do like the new logo. That's true. But once again, see, TJ's trying to deflect from the fact that my idea for the t-shirt would actually sell and the other one wouldn't.
I did try to deflect. I tried to change. You see that bait and switch? It didn't work. Yeah. Grumpy held my foot to the fire. Good job, Grump. Decont said, Tommy B, they get clean condos. My cleaning lady's on vacation. And then
he doesn't. He just is on autopilot. He goes up 7 steps this way with the vacuum cleaner, 3 steps to the right, 4 steps forward. This guy can't improvise.
What a Films saying, Phil, are you a Leafs fan? I'm a fellow Canadian. They have been a disappointment my whole life. Don't even get me started on the media.
I'm definitively not a Leafs fan.
Definitively not a Leafs fan.
I mean, he's not even expounding on that. I agree with him there.
JBL said Mark Stone is like Casey Cizikas on steroids. More than that. I don't even know.
No.
I like Mark Stone.
Mark Stone, I mean, you're talking about a top 10 winger in the league. He's not Casey Cizikas on steroids.
How do you think he'd play if he was on the Islanders, Phil? I think he's perfect.
He would be perfect fit. I mean, listen, it would have been fantastic had he agreed to sign here. They were ready to ship Dobson the other way. They would have done it.
Grumpy's always believed that the coaching staff, if they had a choice to pick between Matt Barzal or Mark Stone, they would pick Mark Stone every day of the week. What is your opinion on that, Phil? I know it's a weird question and it'll never be actually posed, but if you think, who would they rather have a better fit for them, Mark Stone or Matt Barzal?
at the same age. Or
Let's
at their
just
current
say the
ages.
situation they're at current ages.
Current ages, definitely Barzal. But if they were the same age right now, I can hear why they would want Stone. Yeah.
I think actually the fact that he's way older is a plus for Mark Stone, not a negative. I think he'd be perfect for the style that they play. Just
all I know is if he would have agreed to the sign and trade with the Islanders, he would have been an Islander, and Dobson would have been a Senator, along with a lot of other things.
And he probably would have been playing 25 minutes a night. Noah Dobson, probably a top 10 defenseman in the league by now.
Nah, I mean, look at how they've handled Brandstrom.
That's a joke. That's a joke, Phil. It's a joke.
Oh, sorry.
Michael M. also said, also, I always muff this name up, Grump, or Phil.
Double A.
Athanasiou.
Athanasiou, thank you. I'm illiterate at times. Athanasiou skates like the wind, just playing him on the power play to take the puck in. Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to see him on the Islanders in some capacity. Don't think it's in the cards. Betray your soul.
Going back to Athanasiou for a quick second. Yeah. I mean, there's, it's more than just what the player costs, right? The player has to want to play in the role that you're putting them in, right? So Athanasiou looking at the Islanders and figuring that he's destined to play a bottom six role. Is that a position that he wanted to play, right? Which isn't to say that the offer was on the table. But the same thing, I know you had mentioned, Grumpy, earlier, Eric Howla, right? Why didn't we get Eric Howla? Well, if Eric Howla is looking at a potential, maybe playing top six even this season versus a job offer with the Islanders where he's going to be playing with Martin and Clutter, do you think he wants to play with Martin and Clutterbuck? Right? It would have been nice to get him at that dollar amount and for that term. But, trying to convince Eric Howla in a job interview, we've got three centers up, lines 1 through 3. You're going to be playing with Clutterbuck and Martin, and your role is going to look like this. Just watch a whole bunch of Cizikas, Martin, Clutterbuck film and tell me if you like that. I don't know. I mean, if I'm Howla, I'd look at it and say, well, if another team's going to offer me a middle six job, I think I'm going to take that.
Howla, every single member on Long Island is going to know who you are. You're going to be revered by the broadcast crew. You are going to be looked at as the pinnacle, the identity of the Islanders. You thought you were marketable before, Eric Howla. Just wait till this. I mean, Matt Martin's known as the beautiful man. Cal Clutterbuck, they also love him too. They're going to love you here.
I think that Howla has an outside chance of maybe being a third line center in Boston. Outside chance. He's not going to be a second line center there. I know they lost. I know they lost who was it? Krejci.
David Krejci.
Krejci went back to wherever he's from. Dump, Europe somewhere. So he's gone. But it's not going to be Howla. It'll be somebody else.
Charlie Coyle most likely is going to get the first crack at it. But
yeah, Charlie Coyle. That's who it'll be. And he might get third line. But I think that's a problem with the Islanders. I don't think there's a whole lot of open spots. And it's not because they can't upgrade those spots. They just like certain players and they want to ride these guys. And I think that's a problem. If you're looking to bring in any free agents, honestly, there's not a whole lot of spots or perceived spots on this team. And certainly with the style that we play, anyone who's a goal scorer, they're like, why would I go play for the Islanders? If I don't have to, I'd rather go somewhere else. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, listen, if you had a whole bumper crop of right wingers that were available this particular offseason, right? And there hasn't been like a tremendous amount of free agents. The last offseason where that happened was the year where it was Panarin and Anders Lee and Matt Duchene and Kevin Hayes and Brock Nelson. And I mean, there were a lot of free agents that season. Not everyone made it to free agency day, but that was a really, really strong UFA class. But if you're talking about, 5 or 6 good options, I think any of these guys would want to play with Matt Barzal.
Yeah, but when your style is, it's not balls to the wall offense, it's defensive responsibility first, offense second. I just think it colors players' opinions. I do. Matt Barzal was a point a game scorer before Barry Trotz got there. He was. Now he's what? 0.75.
I will say I'd rather him score 0.75 points a game and win and have team success. Points are not everything. I like watching entertaining hockey, but I also like winning. So, you'd like to see the happy media, both entertaining and winning enough, and maybe he could win a cup. That's the ideal scenario. But hey, beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, whatever.
Betray Your Soul 38 said, sign Sparky the Dragon at this point to play defense. Sign anyone. My God, the waiting.
I mean, I think all their off-season work is done. Maybe they're hoping that St. Louis will lower the price on Tarasenko. I think that's what they're waiting for. But I mean, I think all the contracts are done. You know, maybe a little dollar point here, dollar point there, depending if they get Tarasenko or not. But that's about it.
I also want to give, I know BP has always been a big fan of Anthony, I'm going to mess up the name. Double A, Andreas Athanasiou. I know he's always been a big supporter of that too. So DCAB, we don't forget about it. He said, Michael T says, we just need to sign back Chara and Charnes at this point.
Why not? They're both in their 50s.
And Tommy BL said, next podcast, TJ and a grumpy old man at the movies. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm not a big fan of that. And then What a Film said, Grumpy, you know, I'd love you, but you'd fit in well in the Toronto media.
They're very popular up there.
Is that what it is? Is because your popularity or because of your takes?
Probably a combination of both. What does it matter?
Michael M said, I love my analytics, though, and Duclair is a solid top 6 forward. Anthony Duclair, you talk about a guy who really seems to have found it in Florida.
That's what a good coach will do. Turn a guy who's an underachiever into a really good player.
Right. Again, but trying to convince Anthony Duclair last season to come play in the Islanders' bottom 6 when he has an opportunity to play with Alexander Barkov or Jonathan Huberdeau. I mean,
see, that's exactly what I mean. He could have been an upgrade over some of the guys in the top 6. If you
over Beauvillier, I mean, he plays the left wing. Is he an upgrade over Beauvillier? No, he's not.
Yeah, he's better than.
No, he's not an upgrade over Beauvillier. No, he's not.
I like Beauvillier. Beauvillier. I'm not saying he's an upgrade. I would not have taken the dice and rolled it and said, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and move Anthony Duclair into a top 6 role and move Anthony Beauvillier last year." No way in hell.
Give me Duclair's stat line from the playoffs.
Okay.
Well, he only played 5 games?
6.
Did they play 6? Was it 5 or 6?
They went 6. They went 6
games, 0 goals, 0 assists, -3.
Thank you.
What was Anthony Beauvillier's stat line against Tampa?
What was Kyle Palmieri's stat line against Tampa? I'm
going to say it's probably comparable. He had 11 goals.
He definitely had a goal. He had the OT winner.
What do you have? A goal, an assist? I mean, like the stat line. You're playing the best team in the league. I'm not too concerned about playoff. Remember, that's also the first time I think Anthony Duclair's been in the playoffs.
See, there's Phil cherry picking his stats as usual.
I think he brings up. I think he brings up a good point there.
You had Duclair.
If you don't roll a dice and try to get better overall talent, just because those guys are penciled in at those spots, if somebody comes in and outperforms, you move the guys up and you move down. Then maybe you move somebody else out. It's all about making your team better. This team isn't good enough.
He's just not.
This team is not good enough offensively where you shouldn't be rolling the dice and trying to get better offensively.
I will agree, though, with Phil. There's no way in hell Duclair would find this destination as appealing. It was a 1-year deal. He said, I'm going to bet on myself that if I can get some top 6 minutes in a different situation with Quenneville, I could go ahead and be more successful. And if you're looking at the Islander situation and you see Barry Trotz and you see the success that Beauvillier and Anders Lee have had, you know you're penciled in for a bottom 6 role. I do agree with Phil, though. As a player standpoint.
That's a whole nother question, number one. And that's exactly what my point I've been trying to make, that they're so penciled in. These are our top 6. There's going to be no movement there, that you kind of cut yourself off from trying to acquire players. Maybe you're not even looking at someone to upgrade those spots because you're happy with who you have. All I'm saying, we don't score enough where we should be happy with our top 6.
But they have to be better, though, right? Duclair is he's objectively not a better player than Anthony Beauvillier, right? Why would you make that swap for a guy who's been on 6 teams in 5 years? It just wouldn't make any sense.
Well, for $1 million a year, I'm willing to roll the dice and see what he can do.
But he would.
He wouldn't come. That's the whole point.
Well, you're right. You're right. That's the whole point. He wouldn't come because there's no opportunity on this team, and that's
there shouldn't be. He shouldn't be playing ahead of Beauvillier and Lee in the lineup. Of course not.
But the whole thing is, we shouldn't be satisfied that our top 6 is so good that we can't make upgrades. The kid proved what he could do. And here's the thing, I'm not an Anthony Duclair fan, but he certainly overperformed what I thought he was going to do going to Florida. He showed he can play in this league. And he's got some physicality to his game. I mean, would you rather have Anthony Duclair or Zach Parise?
I would rather have Duclair, but again, it gets back to what I was saying before. He's not coming here knowing what the Islanders' top 6 looks like. If you're talking about a player on the market, again, he didn't hit the market, but had Landeskog hit the market, they could have had a logjam in the top 6. If the Islanders have the cap space, they're going to go swinging for it, and they'll make it work later, right? That's the kind of player that you're looking to upgrade on Anthony Beauvillier in your top 6. You're not going out and looking for a guy on the margins, a guy who's bounced around, had a little bit of success here, flamed out with, Tortorella when he wouldn't adapt to what Tortorella wanted him to do in Columbus. It's just, that's not the player I'm taking, even if he would come, right? Which, again, he probably wouldn't, but even if he would come, he's not playing ahead of those guys in the lineup. I just don't see it.
Grumpy wants, I think what Grumpy's trying to say, he's not doing a great job articulating it. He wants them to always have active competition where it's like, hey, doesn't matter what it is, guys' jobs are always up for the line.
And
guys' jobs are always up for the line.
That's not the case on this team.
It's very rarely is the case. Once you have a solidified top 6, you don't see too much movement off of it.
But we don't score a whole lot. What are Beauvillier's numbers last year? And I like Anthony Beauvillier.
They were really good. They were really good last year.
What were they? I don't know. I'm
16 goals. I know he was on pace for 25 goals or something like
47 games, 15 goals, 13 assists, 28 total points plus 15. And Duclair, 43 games, 10 goals, 22 assists, 32 points, 20 plus 27. I mean, here's the thing.
And I'm not advocating for Anthony Duclair over Anthony Beauvillier. I'm not. But the fact that with the way the contracts are signed, no one's moving. It's like you're stuck with what you have.
They just moved. Listen, they moved off Eberle, right? They moved off Eberle because they felt for them, Palmieri's the better fit. And maybe they'll even get him on a better AAV, which I think they will. I would have anticipated 4.25 to 4.75. Somewhere in that range is what I would be guessing, right? They made the choice this offseason. We're not satisfied with Eberle in that top spot anymore. We're going to expose him to Seattle. And now they're bringing in Palmieri. So if it's a situation where you have a guy who's been an accomplished 30-goal scorer in the league, then yes, they'll make that change. That's a change that makes sense. But going into last season, picking Duclair, who had a good first half of the season with Ottawa, and then in his last 40 games only scored 2 goals, right? Whatever it was from December and on, he was just terrible. It just never made sense for that to be someone that the Islanders would look to insert into their top 6. And it never made sense for Duclair on the other side to want to go into a situation where he knew he wouldn't have a chance to do that. But I think if you had a guy again, bring back to the Panarin situation. If Panarin would have come, I don't think Lee would have been here, right? They're more than happy to go ahead and upgrade if you have an elite or really legit top 6 option. It's just those don't often present themselves.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't think we're good enough offensively where we can just say, screw it, these guys are good enough. And Anthony Duclair, he didn't have any other options. He signed a 1-year, $1 million for the year. I mean, so he didn't have a whole lot. It's not like Andy Green, who had so many options that we had to give him $2 million with add-on bonuses. That wasn't the case.
Anthony Duclair represented himself and turned down a multi-year deal from Ottawa worth over $3.5 million a year or something.
Oh, okay, so he's dumb too. I mean, but
he made very curious decisions last offseason. He bet on himself and lost pretty badly. And then Florida gave him the opportunity to bet on himself again, and he got rewarded for it.
And it paid off. And like I said, I'm not an Anthony Duclair fan, but the kid took the ball and he ran with it. If he came here, he wouldn't even have had that opportunity. And that's the problem. I don't think we provide opportunities. I just don't think we provide opportunities for other players to come in. And that's why I firmly believe you're right, where why would someone want to come here? Because they have their lines already penciled, ink. They chisel them in cement. Those lines are not changing, and he won't change them. And to me, that's a frustration. We're not good enough. If you're Tampa Bay, you can do that. Not if you're the Islanders. What were we in scoring last year?
We were what was it, top 15? I think we're top 15 off the top of my head. I mean, we're not. Here's the thing: we're not a top 10. We'll never be a top 10 team in scoring under the Barry Trotz system, but we're always going to be, top 5 in goals against average. So,
I'd love to just see a little bit more offense. That's all. Where we don't have to count on some other team's defensive breakdown or some lucky goal or Josh Bailey shooting the puck once every 15 games and getting a bounce deflection in. It's a tough way to win games consistently over the course of an 82-game season. That's all.
Yeah. No, they didn't. I don't think they finished top 15, but they were doing really well before Lee went down that I know. They were at about 2.9 per game before Lee went down, and then after that, it dipped quite a bit.
Got a comment here. I want to, because I don't want us to continue to churn on this one. I think we've exhausted that point, Grumpy. And then Brian P said, Bodie Wild might help us get a forward.
I don't think he's got much trade value right now.
Really?
Not right now. He hasn't done anything.
Yeah, again, maybe it's because and this might be me just listening to everything they say, but it hasn't done all that much. I feel like Bolduc might have the most trade value for thinking about a young defenseman, but I mean, we're lush. We've got a lot of young defensemen in the system. Can't possibly play every single one of them. Whatever one's got the most value, whatever one you don't think has, a fit or a slot, if it helps move the needle in the right direction, get rid of the young guy.
They do not have a lot of right defensive talent in the system. Bodie Wild, I mean, this is going to be his 4th year post-draft, right? And he really hasn't done anything substantial in the 3 years since he's been drafted, which I agree with Grumpy. I don't think he has really much of any trade value. But that's a guy that you hope could step up and take Scott Mayfield's role, if not next season, then the season after, because Mayfield at 30 years old, coming off of 1.45, he's going to want a pretty sizable contract, and he's earned it, and he's earned the right to that. And at 30 years old, I certainly don't want to be the team that's going to give that to him, but someone's going to give him money as a big right-handed defenseman who could eat a lot of penalty minutes. And that's when you hope a guy like Bodie Wild, either next year or the year after, could come in and fill that role on the cheap, because you do need to have some cheap spots in your lineup.
You do. The teams, the really good teams, are able to take their young players, incorporate them at the bottom of their lineup, let them develop, and then you can have higher valued players playing on your top 6 lines. Those are the teams that wind up winning.
And the really good teams get to stash Hart Trophy winners for the entire season.
That just tells you how good they are, that they can still make the playoffs after doing it.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
I mean, hard to believe. I don't begrudge them that. Those were the rules, and they were good enough to do it. Let's say we would have sat Barzell and name another player, or Pelech, we wouldn't have made the playoffs, right? So other teams, they're the only team that probably could have done that. Good for them. They were smart. They're talented and smart. There's nothing wrong to say that. And people call me a Tampa Bay Lightning fan too, but I just appreciate they're smart. Nothing wrong with that.
Michael M. saying Phil hates Devon Taves. Is this true? Is this true, Phil? I'll let you go ahead.
Hates is a strong word. I had said a month before the offseason, like 3 weeks before the offseason, I said, I'm not comfortable giving Taves a significant deal. If he wants $2.5 million, sign him. If not, for me, he's the guy that has to be traded. I had no problem trading Devon Taves. I absolutely hated the way he played in his own zone. And I never really, again, in hindsight, when you see him play in Colorado with all that talent and play with Cale Makar, that's going to do a lot for you. But he was easily the worst defenseman in the bubble for the Islanders. From the Philly series and on, he was just south of terrible. And there just wasn't enough space to sign them all. So I said, they're going to sign Barzal, they're going to sign Pulock, and Taves, if they can't get him on a deal at 2.5 or less, he's going to be gone. And that's what happens.
They should have moved Leddy and signed Taves. That's what they should have done. And you're right, he was not great in the playoffs. But you know what? How many games did he play in the NHL at that time? 100, 130?
A little over 100.
I mean, so his game is still developing. And to me, Leddy, and people say, oh, everyone's upset Leddy's gone out. Why? Leddy sucks. I mean, yeah, he had a bounce back season offensively, but he's still a defensive liability. He's been for the last 4 years. I mean, his best year was 2016, right? Where I thought they were pretty good. He and Boychuk were pretty good. But then after that, his game has tailed off. And I just thought it was foolish to keep Leddy and let Taves go. Where Taves, as much as you didn't like him, he made Scott Mayfield a better player. He limited the thing that Mayfield doesn't do well, he helped with.
I am not sure. And again, I've heard your take on this before, but I'm legitimately not sure, given what the market was for defensemen last season. Right? This season it was crazy. This season, everyone's giving away 4 first-round picks for right-handed D that no one really cares for, like Rasmus Ristolainen. I am not entirely sure what the market was looking like for a Nick Leddy during a pandemic where owners had no idea what revenues were looking like, where this guy's owed a heck of a lot more cash than his contract is worth. I mean,
you could have done the same things by moving a second round pick to get rid of Letty. That saves you. I mean, think about what Taves signed for, right? 4 years, $4.1 million a year. I mean, man, that's a steal. And we knew on this podcast that he was going to be absolutely perfect for Colorado. That's his style. That's what he plays. And I thought it was short-sighted where let's move Letty and keep the younger guy. But that's never seemed to be the approach we take. And they knew John. This was before Johnny wound up going long-term injury. And so are you trying to tell me you didn't realize you were going to get that $6 million before you moved him?
Yeah, but even with that, they didn't have enough space. I think they for sure knew. There's no way they didn't know that there was something medically up with Johnny Boychuk at that point. It's not like he just on November 1st just came to them and said, by the way, my eye is all messed up and I'm going to the doctor now. I think they probably had that in the back of their head. But listen, if you could have gotten the same return for Letty that you did for Taves, 100%, I agree with you. I just don't know that was there, right? If you want to play okay, let's just give Letty away for free, right? Then all of a sudden you're creating two questions that would have come up this offseason. Number one, what picks are you using to get rid of Ladd? And number two, what's your expansion draft strategy?
Then here's the thing, you don't protect Scott Mayfield. You protect your three other defensemen. That's what you did.
Sure, but now you've just opened up a massive hole on the right side where you had a guy making $1.45 million. Again, there's no like, for me, it's not as simple as just, okay, we should have traded Taves. We should have traded Letty instead of Taves. If the value is equivalent, 100% I agree with you. But if you look at kind of like the after steps of kind of what came from that in terms of getting rid of Ladd by using those picks, being able to keep and protect the three defensemen that we have right now in Letty, Mayfield, and Pulock without having to have any expansion headache, and getting good value for Nick Letty this offseason, which there's no way you were getting a second-round pick for Letty last offseason. Just no way in hell.
Yeah. But the whole thing for me is we're thinking year to year. We're not thinking years in advance. Right now, we're playing year to year, trying to maximize how we're performing. And I would much rather, always looking to the future, And Nick Letty was not part of the future for me. I'd take that 1.5 that you would have saved, getting rid of his salary. Maybe you get yourself an upgrade over Andy Green on the left-hand side, or you trade for somebody who had, at the deadline, who could have been a left-handed defenseman for you. I just think there are a lot of other options. If you keep a Taves and you say, okay, we're going to move on from Mayfield, well, then maybe you're looking at a right shot defenseman who you can get on the cheap, who's going to wind up playing this year on your bottom pairing. I just think there's a lot of other options. For me, I just thought Taves was a future, and I'd much rather would have had him because you only lost Letty after 1 year where you could have had Taves for 4 at a really manageable dollar amount. That's all.
I've always been a big believer of we got underpaid for him. I know you were talking about, hey, it's a different value. Here's the thing. If you understand, we talked about it beforehand. He was going to light it up in Colorado. It was tailor-made for his style of hockey. I mean, like the value that we should have got, I always should have been much better than 2 second-round picks, which are equivalent of late second-round, early third-round picks. I mean, Colorado is going to be deep into the playoffs every single year when we had those picks available to us.
Yeah, if it would have been this offseason, they would have gotten a first-round plus for him. No defenseman fetched a bigger return last offseason than Devon Toews, right? A lot of defensemen were moved. Ryan Murray and Nate Schmidt, a bunch of D-men were moved. No one was moved for anything remotely significant other than Toews. That's how bad the market was.
Yeah, and the fact
nobody had value that Toews did too, and we got
his contract was so light.
No one had value, period, because teams were squeezed with the flat cap. You had at least a half a dozen owners that didn't even want the NHL to play last season, right? You had owners that legitimately were lobbying Gary Bettman to shut down the league because of the losses that they were going to incur, and they had no idea where the revenue streams were going to come from other than TV. So the fundamentals of the market last year, right? Similar to like the real world job market, right? We went from like 19% unemployment to all of a sudden we're like all of a sudden creeping back at full employment. You can't look at this year and apply it to last year because the fundamentals are totally different.
I'm saying you could go ahead and get a guy like that. Even if you wanted to sign him on a 1-year extension, keep him cheap, say, hey, bet on yourself, then we can go ahead and move you. You can go someplace else to sign a big. Because he didn't. Hey, here's the thing. If you always had the plans to get rid of him, you still could have made a way to maximize the return. And for him, that's a guy who is, in my opinion, getting wildly underpaid because of the time period he signed the contract. Are you trying to tell me a guy like that too couldn't have been sold on a, hey, you sign a shorter 1 or 2 year deal, the cap starts increasing, or you could see the cap start to increase at that time period. You're going to have a chance to really maximize your prime and get paid on a big contract, maybe a 7-year contract when you go ahead and have that expire.
So that's the idea, right? Going to arbitration because of his age, he was 26 years old. So he was only eligible for 1 year arbitration as opposed to players who are eligible for 2 if they're 25 or younger. So yeah, the idea of maybe going to arbitration or settling before arbitration on a 1-year deal where you leave him as an unrestricted free agent that's not going to get selected in an expansion draft. Yeah, in hindsight, that probably would have been a pretty good idea.
But I think you hit the nail on the head, TJ. I think they just didn't want it. I think they liked Nick Leddy better, and that was that. So they were moving him. I mean, I firmly believe that. They knew they were up the crack. I thought that Lou did not handle the salary cap crunch last year as well as he handled it this year. He could have done so many other things, and he just took the easy way out by moving a young puck-moving defenseman, which is the way that the league is going. And he said, screw it. I'm going to live back in the 1980s and the 1990s when we were winning Stanley Cups. And that's what we're going to do because it worked 40 years ago. It's going to work now.
I'm going to take the easy way out. I want to move on. Coach Tommy B said, Phil's correct. Otto Koivula's value, 6th or 7th round pick at best.
Yeah, I don't know it. You know what? Here's the thing. He never got a shot. He's never going to get a shot. It doesn't matter.
I show all the comments. And then Michael M saying, what's crazy, Phil, is Bailey will disappear for 20 games. And because he's a fan favorite, he never gets scratched. I don't think it's because he's a fan favorite, but yeah, you'll never see Bailey get scratched.
He never gets scratched. He could suck out there for weeks and weeks, play on that power play, pleasuring in himself. I don't know whose new pleasure partner is going to be with him just passing the puck back and forth. But that guy never comes out of the lineup. He could screw up out there. You're going to roll him out every single game. Never matters. He could be responsible for 8 goals against. Still going to roll him out there next game. Sickens me, that guy.
I'll let Phil respond.
Yeah, I mean, like TJ said, you just don't bench. You don't bench regulars, right? You only carry maximum 2 extra forwards in a given year. So, like, if you're scratching someone, you're not usually scratching them for anyone that's particularly useful anyways.
You don't get benched on this team unless you're under the age of 30. Then you're at risk every night.
I mean, have we ever seen Beauvillier get scratched? I don't think so.
Yep. They sent him down to the minors a couple of years ago.
Yeah, during the All-Star break, right? That was Doug Waite's year though. That wasn't under Trotz.
I thought it was the first year. I thought the first year with them, he tasted the minor league for a little while.
No. That was with Doug Waite. That was the Doug Waite year, and then they sent Beauvillier down for 2 games, which I thought coincided with the NHL All-Star game. I could be wrong. And then he came back and he absolutely tore it up with Eberle and Barzal on the Bo Eberle Barzal line, which was the second line back then. But no, in the Trotz era, I don't think he's ever been scratched.
Okay, I'll take your word for that.
And then State of Survival said, we still have Anatoly Golashev, too. He's no rookie.
He doesn't play any defense either, so you're not going to see him.
I have no idea. I can't tell you I watch any of the KHL.
He's 5'7". He's 5'7".
He's going to play in the AHL, and if he doesn't want to play in the AHL, he'll just simply be back in Russia. That's just what it's going to be.
Yeah. Again, that might be a guy later. He's going to
he's never going to see the light.
And he should.
He's not a guy bye-bye. You don't have a shot. Until these fat cats that we have on the line, until their contracts are gone, nobody has a shot. Nobody. That's the problem with this team. This team is penciled. It's the same lineup we've had basically for the last 3 years?
Michael, I'm saying Bailey listens to Grumpy's commentary and cried. Yeah, no, I don't.
Because he's soft.
Soft one, yeah, a little.
He's Charmin soft.
Yeah, we get a lot of those where it's just like, yeah, and again, like we all know that Zajac, pairing Zajac.
Are you going to go into war with Josh Bailey? Not me.
what do they say? You don't want him in your foxhound, I think is the terminology they
in your
use.
foxhole. He's like the little medic they run in after everybody's been gunned down.
Are
He
you
drags him back.
Oh, what the hell is that movie?
He wouldn't even be in there. He'd be the guy. You know who he'd be? Upham from Saving Private Ryan. Help us over here. I don't know.
I thought you were
what
about to say Desmond from Hacksaw Ridge.
No, he's not Desmond from Hacksaw Ridge. He's Upham from Saving Private Ryan. He wouldn't kill the guy and winds up getting his whole platoon wiped out because he let the guy go because he had balls enough to kill him. Then he gets tough after the fact. That's Josh Bailey.
Oh goodness! I would have said out of the three, who played hockey? I know it wants to do. I played hockey. Thank you very much.
Yeah, DJ played hockey.
I played hockey.
He wound up growing out of that sport, though.
Yeah, I was a big guy. What can I say? And then State of Survival said, I played in the MTHL single A for a season. I don't think the other guys did. Well, here's the thing, right? I could play, you can play in a sport doesn't necessarily mean you're always right on about everything. Hell, I mean, some players they come out with horrible commentary. They're not necessarily fit for it. Moving right along though. Michael M said, imagine having the best Islanders team since the 80s and on the ice, Leo and Zajac. How do you guys not cringe?
I do. Phil doesn't. He thinks they're great. And here's the thing. He wants to double down with Zach Parise.
Okay, Zach Parise is a marketable upgrade. I hate when you do this, Grump.
He's 37 years old. 5 years ago, he's a marketable upgrade.
I think him or Bellows is both an upgrade over Travis Zajac.
Bellows is never playing. Never.
I'm playing devil's advocate. I say it doesn't matter who you roll out there, Parise or Bellows. I think they're both an upgrade over Michael Doug Cole, Ross Johnson, whoever the hell we rolled out there last year on the third line. I do.
I mean, Grumpy, you bring up the age. Who was the biggest problem for us on the Penguins in the first round? Which player? Which forward?
For Pittsburgh? Yeah, they're an old team too. I'm not saying.
Give me his name. Give me Jeff Carter's name.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Where was he drafted?
Off of it.
Two spots after Parise.
He was a first round pick. He was a first round pick.
Parise was 17, I believe, and Carter was 19. Same draft. And in the second,
I agree with you. Jeff Carter is better than Zach Parise. I agree.
I don't think he is.
I don't know.
With the exception of this past season, he's never been better than Parise. Right? You look at the seasons past. Everyone thought Carter was toast like 3 years ago. All of a sudden this year he lights it up and everyone's like, oh my goodness, Jeff Carter, right? He's the same draft year as Parise, right? In the second round, we had a devil of a time with Patrice Bergeron. You know where he was picked?
He was a second round pick, wasn't he?
Yeah, like 25 picks after Parise, right? The fact that he is old doesn't necessarily mean he's bad. I mean, some people age more gracefully than others, but
there you go.
We see players in the league who are still very effective from that particular.
Okay.
We've seen it firsthand.
But Joe Montedots was drafted 2 picks ahead of Zach Parise, and he's out of the league. I mean, here's the thing: Jeff Carter is right now. He's a better player than Zach Parise. Right now, he's a better player than Zach Parise. And Patrice Bergeron is infinitely better at this stage of his career than Zach Parise. Now, Joe Montedots, no, he's not as good as Zach Parise, but he's nowhere as good as the other guys either. You can't do that comparison. I'm
just curious to see how Parise does with a regular role as opposed to being jerked around the lineup with a coach who he didn't get along with. Right? It's clear from the fact that they gave up on Suter, and Suter is still a good player, right? It is very clear that Guerin went into last year and the coach with a plan that these two guys, right, good or bad, right? Parise came off a pretty good season, 25 goals in 68 games or whatever it was. They came in where they were just going to make his life miserable, and that they had intended to move on from both him and Suter. Right. And he was good in the playoffs when they finally agreed to put him back in, and he almost helped them get out of the first round. No one would have said up until this year that Carter was a better player than Parise pretty much at any point in their careers. Never.
Okay. And you know what I'm interested to see? I'm interested to see if Zach Parise is going to be happy playing a third line role when he bristled when he got sent down earlier last year with Minnesota. So much so that he became a healthy scratch.
Here's the thing. He's still going to play on the power play. I know you don't like Parise. It's not even worth me arguing. He's going to be on the team. He's going to be more successful than you think. I'm not saying he's going to be revolutionizing, but he's going to be better than a Michael Doug Cole. So I do agree that's an upgrade. Not necessarily the best upgrade, but an upgrade nonetheless. So hey, we got to find some middle ground.
I don't dislike Zach Parise.
What?
I don't dislike him. I just think people thinking that he's going to be some massive upgrade that's going to elevate us to Stanley Cup contention. I just think they're mistaken. That's all.
I think anyone who could score 15 goals is 14 goals better than Michael Dal Cole. And that's pretty big.
I think 10 and 15 is his numbers.
I mean, he had, if you count the 4 playoff games he played, he had 9 and 46 last year or something like that, 9 and 47. I think he's good for 15 to 20 goals. I really do.
He was just a depth piece for Minnesota at the end.
I think he'll be a depth piece here that gets power play time. You asked, hey, why will he be happier if he plays with the Islanders in a third line role? He's going to be playing on a power play. He's going to get more time. Remember, we roll our lines more consistently. So, he's not, even though he'd be playing on a third line, he's still getting, 13 plus minutes a night.
So you're going to sit Pulock. Who are you going to sit on the power play?
I don't even care at this point. Our power play is so miserable. We can use whatever we can.
Well, it doesn't matter because we rolled out the same power play the last 2 years.
No, they got rid of Eberle, right? So
when you're going to have, if you bring in another right wing, you're going to have him slide in and Nick Leddy. Maybe you'll just run 2 power play lines where you're going to have. I know Nick Leddy kind of bounced in and out, but when Nick Leddy was out last year, we rolled out what you had some games where you had Zajac on the power play. I mean, if you're going to roll maybe 8 power play units, going to have 4 forwards, 1 defenseman.
But his game is being in front of the net, right? Really, on a power play, you're going to sit. Who are you going to sit? Average or Croc?
No, he's not going to be. I don't see him on the same power play unit as Lee. It just doesn't make sense. They have the same type of skill set for the power play. I could see them either probably take out Beauvillier. They don't really like him on the power play. He's never really been good at it.
Yeah, he creates, so I know they don't like
that.
him.
That would upset the apple cart. Beauvillier
is not usually on the power play.
Yeah,
Beauvillier usually on the power play. No,
I don't think so. No, not usually. They don't really like him there. He doesn't have a good one-time shot. If I'm remembering correctly, I mean, they used a healthy amount of Dobson, Leddy, and Pulock last year, and then the 7 forwards are Nelson, Pajot, Bailey, for God knows what reason, Eberle, right? It's the top line. It was the second line minus, the second line without Beauvillier, Wahlstrom, and Pajot. That's what it was. Those 7 forwards.
He's got some power play time the last 2 years. I'm not sure if he's a main. Again, it's hard to remember.
He's not a permanent fixture there, though. I don't think they particularly love him there. He's okay at it. He's never been great at it, though. Coach
Tom may be also saying Devontae's rookie year is really good. Second year, very inconsistent.
I didn't think he was inconsistent the whole year. I thought he struggled in the playoffs, so without doubt.
What a film said, I played junior A goalie. I think goalies make good coaches. They really get a good feel for the team's attitude, and I think the Islanders have a tight team. Go Islanders.
Yes, Wood is exactly right. The Islanders have a tight team, and I think goalies do make good coaches. They see the game. They see the whole game.
Some of these comments, goodness gracious. Moving right along.
Are some of them ripping Phil?
No, it's a lot of comments about the same things we've been talking about, but I do recognize them in the comments, but I always want to try to get, if we've got questions, especially because there's a lot of them, I'm going to miss so many comments, and I apologize. So it's too tough to get to everything. He cut there saying TJ loses all my comments. I'm sorry. What can I say? It's tough. There's a lot of them. He was saying that he was just making some, hey, TJ spending too much time designing Phil Fax's pillow instead of Grumpy's Groupies V-neck T-shirts. Stuff like that. I don't.
That's funny stuff, though. I like that.
I'm not missing a D-cut.
I don't know why he hates you so much, Phil, but it's funny.
It's. And then Michael M said, I just want to give this podcast credit, even when we have no news. You guys still put in effort. We appreciate it, Michael. And Michael Woodafilm said, just saying, we spend a lot of time bitching about this team and the coaches, but the dynamic the Islanders have right now is special. Bailey included. Barzal is our secretary.
Yeah, Bailey would be the horse Sham, the one who got beaten all the time. And being a sham hockey player, it's a perfect fit. I love it. Thank you, Woodafilms. You set me up beautifully today.
I'll just let this one marinate. State of Survival said Nelson is the weak spot on this team, the position that needs the most upgrade. That is, you want to talk about a hot take?
I don't think he's and I'm not a Croc fan, but I don't think he's the weak spot on this team. That's going to be probably Zach Parise when he signs. But as of right, that was for you, Phil. But for right now, it's not Brock Nelson. I don't think Nelson was anywhere near as good last year as he had been previously. But he is not the weak spot on this team. Maybe if he looks over to the right side, then you can see the real weak spot.
I'll let you get a stab at that too, Phil.
No, he's not. I mean, I think almost every team in the NHL would be very satisfied with the second line center like Brock Nelson.
I will say though, I'm not going to say, hey, everything's all flowers with him. I know I'm a Brock Nelson hawk. The second line, I think defensively took a step backwards last year in the playoffs. I thought that they definitely left something to be desired. I thought defensively on that side of the puck, they did not fill the shoes per se.
Yeah, I don't think the second line was anywhere near as good. Like early, particularly offensively early, when Beauvillier was
defensively.
Yeah, I know. I'm just going the full gamut. I'm going to give you the whole line, offense and defense. I'm not just tunneling up on defense. I'm getting there, okay? Yeah, the defense was nowhere near as good, but they weren't as good offensively either, particularly when Beauvillier wasn't performing well and he had the injury. When he came back healthy again, that line picked up offensively. But Brock Nelson's never been a creator. And Josh Bailey, well, the human sidecar. Who cares what he does? Nothing. He just takes up $5 million in salary cap space.
Jerry Bennett said, TJ, your microphone is kind of covering your face. Is that on purpose?
It is on purpose. It's better for the podcast, actually.
If I could actually cover the entire face or get something I can like post over top of it and just get like it's something mouthing the words, maybe we're like a little cardboard cutout every podcast. I do that, but I don't think we got the budget to do it.
Maybe you should wear a hat too.
Yeah, at this point, who knows? State of Survival said, a part of me always wanted to see Tanner Fritz play one season for us.
Sorry. No.
Why?
No, I was about to say Tanner Fritz.
They're looking for a first-round draft pick. They're looking for the first pick in the draft.
Yeah, no.
How is he still in the organization, honestly?
He's not. He's a free agent.
Wasn't he last year, though?
Last year he was, yeah. But they signed him.
Why?
Death piece.
I mean, you need to have AHL players.
Why is Steve Bernier still with us?
He hasn't been with us for 2 years.
Steve Bernier, Grumpy. The AHL, trust me.
He's been gone for a while, Bernier.
Games are tough to watch to begin with, but
yeah, I can't. I mean,
Mike. Well, we still have Matt Laredo. I still think in Bridgeport.
I don't think we do. No, I think he's gone also.
He's going to. It tells you how many games I've watched.
They traded him to the Marlies. They traded him to the Marlies, a couple of years ago, I believe. The trade deadline.
I'll have to look at that. Michael T said, "Hey Grump, the Doors are Led Zeppelin.
Zeppelin
one,
please. Zeppelin. I like the Doors too. I like some of this one, but Zeppelin, please. That's like okay. Josh Bailey, Matt Barzal. Well, okay, the Doors. All right. It maybe if you were saying Richard Hell and the Voidoids, that would be Josh Bailey, and then Led Zeppelin would be Matt Barzal.
And Paulo C said, "Good on you, Phil. Outscored 21-11, but a bit deceiving. You take the outcome of Game 5, and it's a lot closer than you think." What a film said. Also agree, Paulo. So giving you some props there.
I think Tampa just toyed with us. Could have beat us anytime they wanted by any score. The first game we played the perfect game, and still Tampa Bay with 3 minutes to go, they woke up and they said, "Hey, we can win this game. If that game goes 2 more minutes, we want to be losing that game."
So why wouldn't they mess around with Carolina in the same way if they're that sadistic?
Because they knew they could beat Carolina too. And they said, you know what? The Islanders, we don't even have to get up for them. Carolina, they were a little bit tougher. They won division. We're going to send them a message. The Islanders, John Cooper said it. Yeah, it's okay. We lost game 1. It's not what they did. Pretty much, we just weren't there today.
If you watch the interviews of their players, they said in both runs they've never had a tougher challenge than the Islanders.
They said Florida was the toughest team last year. Florida was the toughest series, even though they won. They said Florida.
Is that what they said Florida?
I think they also said the Islanders. So it was conflicting, right? I think they said Florida originally was the toughest team they played, but the Islanders. Who the hell knows? Honestly, when I see those post game interviews, it's the same exact thing. Like when I think about the respect level, I see John Cooper playing around with his suit after they lose game 1. Not giving a shit about the questions. I'm like, he doesn't. They're not concerned about us at all. I'd more look at the reaction like that than what they say. Oh, this is all coach speak. I don't care about that. I look at the reaction.
He wasn't worried about us at all. Not at all.
And then I'm sorry. Go ahead, Grom.
No. That's
State of Survivor said, I see Bailey as a better Perron.
no. I'll take David Perron. He's like, how old's David Perron? He's got to be in his mid-30s. I'm surprised we're not signing him back. Let's
Grumpy.
get him on this team.
We don't have the Matt Laritos of yesterday, the AHL, the Steve Berniers. We've just got the Dimtro Timasovs, grumpy old man in Bridgeport. We've got.
We don't have him either. We don't have Timashov either.
We did last year. We still had Timashov last year. Yeah, and again, like we're looking at, I'm like, okay, we had the Kuhnacles of last year. I'm looking at the roster. I'm
What's
like,
the difference? They're all the same. They all suck. They're all never going to make the team. It's the same. Remember, TJ, you were pumping Timashov, where I didn't even care to learn his name because I knew he was never going to make it. And who was the other ham and egger who they signed? Who was the other piece of garbage who I said wasn't going to make it? Is gone now.
I can't even remember.
AJ Greer, but they traded for him. That was an AHL trade. He's not.
No, it was somebody else. It was somebody else.
In the offseason, I'll have to pull that, Grump. I can't remember the exact transaction.
Jarnac.
Yeah.
He's another one. I knew that wasn't going to work out too. I don't need to know their names. They're never going to play.
Oh, goodness gracious. Moving right along here. Golden Meanie said, so is this guy Lou has chosen to stand in for a while for him. I'm sorry. So this guy, so this is the guy Lou has chosen to stand in for him while he gives the answers through an earpiece.
I don't know who he's talking about.
I think this is for Phil.
It's about me. Sure. Yeah. Let's go with that.
I don't know.
Just a company man. That Phil's a company man. What can I tell you?
That's it. And then Brett W said, Grumpy Mania is running wild. Let's see if this comment gets lost. Oh, shit. I tell you, I guess I have the rep for losing comments. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, just select comments.
Brian P said, Grump, the sheep never understand your genius.
Thank you, Brian.
I didn't lose that one, Grumpy. There you go. Oh, goodness. And What a Film said, Phil is from Toronto. He has nothing to celebrate or put on his walls.
Oh,
he's an Islander fan, though. I don't know.
Well, let's say same thing. Phil is not as old as some of us. So, he has nothing to put up on his wall for the Islanders either.
I would have a barren wall if I didn't have this Islanders. What can I say? Grumpy, you just have a picture in that old light fixture that you've got, that old flip to the light switch fixture. Aunt Bruce said, Islanders need to make moves. They got a brand new arena. We need scoring. We, the people, want results.
Well, the first year, the arena will sell itself. But after a while, here's the thing. We're good enough usually. We're going to have a good regular season. We should contend for the playoffs, but we're never going to win a Stanley Cup with Barry Trotz. It's not going to happen. Book it, write it down, finish it. Not happening.
And I'll get to a few here. Jeremy said, I'm going to pick out the fun ones because we got a lot of comments, and I don't want to keep Phil facts too long here. I mean, we're 3 hours, but Jeremy said Phil's facts is the Ben Shapiro of hockey. I think that's a compliment.
I don't think he looks like Ben Shapiro.
I think he's saying he knows his facts like Ben Shapiro. You ever heard that?
And I'm a lot taller than Ben Shapiro.
I don't know how tall either one of you are.
I was about to say, I couldn't tell you how tall Ben Shapiro is either.
He's pretty small.
You know a little bit too much about Ben Shapiro for my liking, Phil.
And then What a Film said, great podcast. Grumpy, you're always the star of the show.
Thank you. What a love you, baby.
I know. I'm trying to find it again. I saw it earlier. Jeremy said, can you guys hook me up with a free t-shirt for being a loyal fan? I was about to say,
I can give you one out of my drawer. Just going to be a plain white one, but that's it.
What a Film said, stir the pot, TJ. If Grumpy wasn't there, you wouldn't even know there was a pot to stir.
Oh!
Hey.
These are the type of comments we need to see more of.
I'm sorry, Grump. They get to the end and there's so many. And then Michael D said, let's try to stir the pot here. Phil Fax, Grumpy Old Man thinks that that because of the way the Islanders play, it deters free agents.
And you pretty much already said that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Again, I'm just reading that. Oh, he wrote it again.
It's the same thing. He just wrote it kind of a little clearer.
Yeah, listen, I think it has to do with who the player is in a lot of respects and where that player feels they could fit into the lineup, right? Like I said before, would a guy like Howla want to play on the fourth line? Probably not. That's a pretty bruising role, and it's just not comfortable, right? But if you're talking about, again, I'll bring it back to Landeskog. If he wasn't going back to Colorado, would we have been a preferred destination for him to play with Matt Barzal? I think probably yes.
No way. No freaking way was he ever coming here. No.
If he wasn't going back to Colorado, I think we would have been among the top 2 or 3 choices for him.
He was never coming here. No one
He was coming here because he was going back to Colorado. I'm saying
the next free agent we sign is going to be the first.
Next big free agent.
Big free agent will be the first.
Listen,
Andrew Ladd has been the biggest free agent we've ever signed, Phil.
I mean, that's a different era, and that was a terrible idea. But if you're talking about, the free agents that have been on the UFA market since Lou's been the GM, there's been one. It's been Panarin. Who else have you wanted? What other big fish have they tried to chase other than Panarin in these 4 years?
I don't know. Every move he's tried, he looks like Giancarlo Stanton up there, swinging a miss. Starting with Tavares and Panarin.
Tavares, it's Tavares and Panarin. Everyone says
he wanted both of those guys. Swing, strike one, swing, strike two. And let's see if he goes for the golden sombrero on Tarasenko and strikes out again. I'm just saying, he never has a plan B. It's plan A or nothing. Bring back the same cast of characters.
But that's the plan B. Plan B was Anders Lee. I mean,
like I said,
hey, that was always plan A. If you remember, Lou Lamoriello told us.
They were going to sign both of them. He said he was going to sign both of them, if you could believe that. I'm like, you're full of crap.
The crazy thing is, some fans are so set in their ways to where they would believe that. Oh, hey, he said it, even though it doesn't work in the cap. They said they were going to do it. They were going to do it. Robin Stewart saying, speaking of rolling the dice, how is Milbury doing these days? Oof.
He doesn't have a job.
I assume he's just maybe he's relaxing. Maybe he's in some tropical weather where it's sunny and 75 every day. Who the hell knows? I couldn't imagine him ever getting another position.
Somebody should sign him.
I don't imagine he ever will.
I don't even know what he did was even that bad. As a matter of fact, it wasn't bad. Now that I think about it, the cancel culture canceled him because he said that guys play better if their wives or girlfriends aren't there. That's enough to get you canceled nowadays.
Okay, what he was trying to say too is I'll say it like I said it before.
Go Milbury.
Some young hockey players seem to prioritize late night partying and going out. And I thought it was a very uncouth way to say it. Wasn't shocked at all that he was moved. But if you have a bombastic personality, if you say one thing wrong these days, Don Cherry, anything of that nature, doesn't matter what you've done in the past, doesn't matter if you've misspoke, doesn't matter if you're wrong, you're gone. That's just how it is.
Up, you freaking weasels.
Soft. Brian B said, Grumpy's point, I agree with 100%. Talented offensive players won't come here. And then Tommy B saying, no, they won't come for a lesser role. Grumpy needs to understand that better. And Tommy B
also said, player on the whole team was worth a damn offensively is Matt Barzal. Everybody else should be thrown into the damn grinder. They're not that good. I'm sorry, they're just not that good. They're Jags. They're known as many of the Jags for a reason. Stop overrating your players on your team. We're not that talented. That's why we don't win.
Coach Tommy B said 4 years, $4.5 million for Palmieri is what he heard. That's what he saw.
Another trash can special from Tommy B.
Goodness gracious. Another trash can.
How about that, TJ? You like that deal? 4 years?
Yeah, I looked up.
4 years, $4.5 per?
4 years, 4.5. Yeah, why not? It's better than the Eberle deal. Here's the thing. I think they're comparable. Eberle, Palmieri, pretty much comparable. I honestly think that Palmieri probably fits our system better than Eberle does.
What happens if we get bounced in the first round of the playoffs or don't make the playoffs? Are we going to think our offensive top six is good enough? The answer is no.
I'll say it as I said it before. I still think we need to add a big sniper, a big fish. I've said that some before, and I'll say it again. That still needs to be done.
I'd rather have Phil out there than Josh Bailey.
And then Tommy Biel said, I'm not upset Lady's gone. Michael T saying TJ's background, the Islanders logo, that isn't even legit Islanders logo. So the collector's item may be trash. What can I say? And Michael T said TJ was a gift from a Rangers fan and or a Flyers fan or a Penguins fan or a Capitals fan. If you didn't even bring it up, I don't even think anybody would notice that. It's just something that just mixes in with the background. And then BK said, you guys are great. There's a lot of comments here we missed, but I don't want to keep Phil on forever and ever and ever. I want some closing thoughts.
Phil has four little girls in his house. This is a respite for him.
This is great. I could go forever, right? As long as I'm not upstairs, right?
Oh my goodness. But I want TJ Because St. Teacher really acknowledged the Islanders' misery. I think one of his minions steered away from us. Grump always represents. Thank pal.
Sometimes I forget the name. I say Islanders misery. It's Isles misery. I have to try to remember. That's that early onset dementia that I have. Sometimes I forget. But D Cuts, he's my boy, and we do the call-in shows. He's always the first caller. Well, not always. I think once he wasn't, but he's usually the first caller in, and I love D Cut. And the fact that he hates Phil is even better. This is perfect. Makes Phil more appealing, actually.
Paulo C said, I agree with Grumpy. I don't want a 36-year-old player. I don't care who the player is. The one exception, a goal scorer, defensive specialist.
Thank you, Paulo.
You can argue Zach Palmieri or Zach Parise. Zach Palmieri.
Now, I don't know if people start agreeing with me later in the podcast because they've been drinking during the show.
That's
I don't
what it
know
is.
how that really works.
Well, they play the their game. Anytime I say there in an unnecessary manner, they take a shot, and by the end they're hammered. So that usually is the reason why they start thinking like, maybe this Grump guy knows a thing or two.
Have you noticed that before, Phil? That TJ says there a lot. Go ahead. He does. Look at the smile on his face. Absolutely, he does.
I do. It's my crutch word. I'm trying to fix it.
But here's the thing. I told TJ about that, and he was like, stupid old grumpy old man. I'm like, dude, you do it all the time. And then somebody else calls him out on it, and now he's got to pay the piper.
Oh, goodness gracious!
Chicken's coming home to roost, Bobby Boucher.
I want Phil Fax to have a chance to kind of give some last thoughts or words about what he thinks is going on with the offseason, and kind of if he wants to have a chance to to do a little send off for himself.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. This was an absolute pleasure. Really had a great time. Islanders offseason. I mean, we're in neutral right now, right? We got off to a hot start with doing a little bit of accounting work and getting rid of some of the crap that Grumpy didn't like, right? Lou was taking his orders from the grumpy old man for the first couple of days of the offseason. And now we're, kind of the market's settled and Lou is in stealth mode over here. And hopefully he can land us the big fish before training camp opens in just a few weeks from now.
Absolutely. Hey, I agree with that, Grump. I want you to get some last words in too. Number one, Phil, thanks for coming on. We enjoyed it. I'd love to have you on. We'll love to have you on again. It was a fun time. I like when you give Grumpy a little bit of a fight back too, because as I get busy as I'm reading some comments, and sometimes I'll let some comments slide that Grumpy makes. So it's good to have somebody who fights the good fight.
All kidding aside, Phil, it was fantastic, and I really enjoyed having you on today. Fantastic. I'm sure. Let me tell you something. You're way better than some of the other minions that TJ brings on here. So, I'm just going to say it was pleasurable having you on. You're not as good as Isles Girl 3. Sorry. But, you're better some of the other goofs that he brings on here. That's for certain. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, all kidding aside. I thought you were fantastic today. And I think the people like it too. But I want to say love and laughter to everyone who listens and even those who don't, from TJ, the grumpy old man. And I'm even going to throw Phil in there.
And again, thank you so much, guys, for listening, tuning into the live stream and the podcast. And thank you, Phil, again for coming on. We loved it. We'll have you on again sometime soon. Hey, it's an off season with not too much going on, but we appreciate Phil coming on and helping us talk some of the overarching Islanders debates and overarching Islanders thoughts that the great minds have been pondering over and helping crack the code as to who's taking some of Phil's content. I do appreciate that, sir. Was that, Grump?
Wrap it up. And make sure that you tell them about our podcast tomorrow, TJ and the Grumpy Old Man.
Yeah, we've hit it already. You can find make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Follow on Facebook or follow on Twitter, like on Facebook. And again, we also have our General Sports Podcast. That's also in the link below. That's on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, called TJ and the Grumpy Old Man. Again, you've also going to be able to see Phil Fax information on the description as well. He's on Twitter where you could find it. You could watch these takes where you get it immediately. So when things happen, you can kind of get the inside scoop. I know we got Tommy, the man with the inside hand, Baffy, and Phil's and Phil Fax as well. Don't forget to go ahead and follow him on Twitter. Thank you so much, guys, for being on it. And thank you, everybody who listened.